exacerbates the power paradox we talked about earlier. If only a very small number of very, very wealthy entities can build the stuff in the first place, and they're also the entities that then deliver your Bob or your Susan in sort of almost imposter human form, this bifurcation of power where we become ever more reliant on this technology in a highly personalized way, and at the same time it can only be delivered to us through the deep pocketed, entities in China and the US. So I think all of that is a concoction which is going to create ethical, moral and political dilemmas which make the kind of people who will do my job that I did for a while in Silicon Valley, you can call it interesting, but also very, very challenging. And now all of this, of course, is taking place, since you asked for big trends, in the context in which the American sort of techno-political establishment, which is really now congealed under Trump too, believes, as far as I can make out from what I've heard privately and what you read publicly, believe that they can deliver a knockout blow against China, that this existential race for AI supremacy is akin to outspending the Soviets. And there will be a sort of Berlin Wall moment when one of these big American entities, Meta, Google, Microsoft, Anthropic, will suddenly deliver AGI, artificial general intelligence, or superhuman intelligence. They'll somehow then be able to put that technology in a box, lock it, and say, we are going to prevail forever and anon. I think that's nonsense. I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't think America is going to beat China like that. I don't think there will be a knockout blow. If you look at the way that the Chinese are already actually leading, here's the irony, in open source technology, which is democratizing the technology for free around the world. Here's the irony. So you've got the world's greatest autocracy that is, oddly enough, in its competition against the world's greatest democracy, America, doing more to democratize the technology that they're competing over. And so I think at some point the American political and economic establishment will realize that they're not going to win. They're not going to win on this current trajectory. And if they want to win, they're going to have to relearn something they've clearly lost under these last few months under Trump. They're going to have to relearn working in leadership through partnership.
Thank you for listening to The Interview from the BBC World Service. You'll find more in-depth conversations on The Interview wherever you get your BBC podcasts, including episodes with political economist Francis Fukuyama, UN Deputy Secretary-General Amina Mohammed, and legendary Hollywood actor Sir Anthony Hopkins. Until the next time, goodbye for now.
From the BBC, that was The Interview.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio live in your community, in our community. And our community studio today is the beautiful Ukrainian Labor Temple, which has been restored here out in Winnipeg's North End on Pritchard and McGregor. So that's where we are. We are here for the 28th Annual Light Breakfast. It's a nonprofit. It helps people get a leg up on employment, and also this year is fundraising for their food banks, for their food hampers going on. So we'll hear all about that throughout the show. It's 3 minutes to 6. This is CBC's Morning Show on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app, or you can see us on YouTube here in the Labor Temple. Throughout the program, we will be hearing weather and traffic. If you have a traffic issue, you're going to call Corey Funk at 788-3093. Got a light skiff of snow out there right now. It's -7 in Winnipeg. Brandon's clear and -15 also up in Thompson. -13. You're warmer in the north for a moment here than we are in the south, and you have light snow falling as well in Thompson. Also want to say good morning to Mr. Darren Marash, who's our producer of our YouTube stream, so say hello to him if you're watching that, and Mr. Abby Adeyemi, who is our talented tech and also doing studio directing today, and Abby's going to cover our forecasts on the show. Megan Ketchison is in on CBC for Heather Wells from our news department today, and she's here with headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, the head of the union that represents Manitoba nurses says the healthcare system failed Genevieve Price. The 82-year-old woman died last weekend after her situation worsened over the course of 30 hours at 2 Winnipeg emergency departments. Darlene Jackson is the president of the Manitoba Nurses Union. She says it's alarming that Price fell through the cracks. And a violent attack at St. Anne Collegiate sent a student to hospital this week. St. Anne police say another student has been arrested. That incident was caught on video and shared, and that prompted a warning from the school's principal. And we'll have more at 6:30.
All right. Thanks very much, Megan.
Thank you.
Well, this first hour on the show, we're actually going to talk about this place. We're on location at the Labour Temple, as mentioned. So we thought we'd take the opportunity to be reminded of the deep history here in our local labour movement, and also a recent renovation, as I mentioned, to make this place more accessible and relevant to Winnipeggers today. We're going to talk to a man who's involved in the tours here. His grandfather was one of the people that built this place, so very cool. Also in the first hour of the show, are you looking at your kids' cereal and snacks this morning? Are they crawling with the faces of cartoon characters? We're going to talk about research that looks at the persuasive power of that.
On cue.
Chantal Kreviazuk is one of Canada's most prolific singer-songwriters. She's written songs for some of the biggest artists in the world, everyone from Gwen Stefani to Kendrick Lamar. She'll be here to talk about falling in love with music, her career, and her new record of covers of her own songs.
I just wanna feel this moment.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland. And on CBC Listen. Or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. Today, Prime Minister Mark Carney and the rest of the country will have some hard numbers to go on. Statistics Canada releases its third quarter GDP report this morning. The big question is whether Canada successfully avoided a technical recession. While economists say we avoided that, the economy remains weak. CBC's senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong has more.
The deal Prime Minister Mark Carney announced with Alberta yesterday is aimed at boosting growth in Canada.
This is Canada, build for today, but building very much for the future.
The key word there is future. All these plans will help grow GDP down the road. But BMO's chief economist Douglas Porter says the defining characteristic of the Canadian economy right now is weakness.
There's no debate that the economy struggled through the middle part of the year with all the trade uncertainty. It does at this point look like we will have avoided the, quote, technical definition of a recession.
Bradley Saunders, North American economist with Capital Economics, believes economic activity expanded in September, but he says growth may remain weak until 2027.
We have growth below 1% for a little while. So yeah, avoiding a technical recession, as you say, but we're not getting back towards sort of the 1.5 to 2% figures that you want to see until second half of next year into 2027.
And even that meager forecast is contingent on the trade war with the U.S. not getting any worse. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
Prime Minister Mark Carney and Alberta Premier Danielle Smith are extolling the benefits of their new energy understanding. But even as they talk about a stronger, more resilient and more sustainable Canada, there's a lot of criticism and skepticism. The questions about whether this could be a risky bet for Carney and his governing Liberals. Let's bring in Janice McGregor from our Parliamentary Bureau. Janice, immediately after this announcement, Natural Resources Minister Tim Hodgson flew to BC. Is he worried about the reaction there?
Natural Resources Minister Tim Hodgson out there trying to convince skeptics, don't worry, I got this.
There will be three-way conversations about any route and any pipeline, consultation consistent with free, prior, informed consent with First Nations. So I think we should all take a breath.
Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, too, yesterday said her government works well with First Nations, trying to reassure everyone that no route has been finalized yet. And the Indigenous consultations that start now, she said, are going to influence what territory a new pipeline crosses and the port where it ends. First Nations leaders yesterday, though, weren't echoing this confidence that everything's going to be okay once they've had a chance to talk.
So, Janice, does all of this pose a risk to the Liberal Party's reputation on climate policies?
Well, Greenpeace yesterday was pointing out that Alberta is responsible for nearly half of all the carbon emissions that come from generating electricity in this country. But now this agreement would let Alberta off the hook for the federal clean electricity regulations. Environment Minister Julie Dabruzen was sent out on defense to convince reporters that Canada's still going to somehow be on track to keep its climate commitments.
The 2030 and 2035 targets remain Canada's targets. We're determined to continue the work to get there.
Canada's emissions reductions plan, that was at the heart of what Stephen Guilbeault was trying to achieve in Cabinet. Yesterday's reversal proved too much. But in the Prime Minister's response to his resignation, Mark Carney said that a climate strategy based solely on regulations and prohibitions won't work because it doesn't align enough interests. Basically, put another way, it's alienating the people they need on board.
Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
Meanwhile, in Alberta, the United Conservative Party is holding its annual general meeting in Edmonton today. And although some members are celebrating the new MOU on energy, others not convinced the deal does enough to get a new pipeline built. Aaron Collins explains.
They want a better deal for this province.
Tim Hoven doesn't think members of his United Conservative Party will be impressed with the new energy deal between his province and Ottawa. The Alberta rancher doubts it will deliver on a pipeline, and Hoven thinks Danielle Smith will have a tough time selling it at the UCP's annual general meeting this weekend.
There's going to be about 10% very enthusiastic supporters who are going to love it. 20% of the people are going to be kind of on the fence, and 70% of the people are going to sit there with their arms folded and just look at it. They want more.
But the Premier is pitching the deal as a path to a pipeline and not just to her party.
Albertans from right across the political spectrum, whether they be staunch federal conservatives or liberals or new Democrats or something else, they expect me as their Premier to partner with this federal government to seize this long-awaited opportunity for our province.
Despite some skepticism from members of her own party, political scientist Wayne Bratt says the pipeline deal is a win for the Premier.
There's a long way between an MOU and an operational pipeline, but she has a deal in hand.
How this energy deal ages for Danielle Smith depends on when a pipeline emerges. The longer progress on a new line lingers, the more opposition to the plan and the Premier who delivered it could build. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Calgary.
Donald Trump is vowing to, quote, permanently pause migration from what he calls third world countries. In a lengthy post on social media, the U.S. president claims most foreign-born U.S. residents came from what he calls failed nations. Trump blames them for crimes across the country. The post comes in the wake of the shooting of 2 National Guard members on Wednesday. One of them died yesterday. The suspected shooter is an immigrant from Afghanistan. Trump also says he will end all federal benefits and subsidies to non-citizens, adding that he will, quote, denaturalize migrants who undermine domestic tranquility. The number of deaths in the apartment complex in Hong Kong is climbing dramatically. Hong Kong security chief tells reporters there are now 128 confirmed deaths, and he warns that number is certain to rise. Chris Tang says the search for victims continues. He also says the firefighting operation has ended at the site. Investigators are now on the scene. The cause of the blaze has not yet been determined, but highly flammable material used in a major renovation is believed to have caused the fire to spread quickly. Tang also says the fire service found that alarms in all the apartment buildings were not working effectively. A church choir welcomes Pope Leo to Istanbul. The pontiff is in Turkey on his first international trip since assuming office in May. As Briar Stewart reports, Canadians are among the celebrating crowds.
Dozens gather in a cathedral in Istanbul to greet Pope Leo.
Peace be with you.
Trips abroad have become a big part of the papacy, and he's in Turkey to commemorate the 1700th anniversary of the Council of Nicaea, an important event in Christianity, which took place in what is now the Turkish city of Iznik. During his speeches, Leo has also been preaching peace and compassion.
The significant presence of migrants and refugees in this country presents the church with the challenge of welcoming and serving some of the most vulnerable.
More than 3 million Syrian refugees live in Turkey. Outside of the church, the large crowds on the sidewalk are mostly heavily armed police officers, part of a significant security presence. But near one of the metal barriers, hoping to get a glimpse of the first U.S. Pope, Jackie and Martin Isles from Leamington, Ontario. They're in Turkey as part of a tour.
So this would have been the icing on the cake if we got a private audience with the Pope. I love him. I think he's personable. I trust him completely.
And the Americans need him more than ever.
The Pope will be in Turkey for most of the weekend. He'll then head to Lebanon. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Istanbul.
And finally, The bill for the fallout from the Louvre's $102 million jewel heist is officially being passed on to the tourists. The museum is hiking its entrance fee. Non-European visitors will now pay €32. Now that's up from €22. The fee hike will improve the museum's poor security. The entire renovation plan estimated at over $933 million.
Mona Lisa, Mona Lisa, men have named you. You're so like the lady with the mystic smile.
The plan is to upgrade security for the Louvre's priceless collections and to give the iconic Mona Lisa a dedicated, secure gallery.
For that Mona Lisa strangeness in your smile.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Mona Lisa.
I love that they're playing the romantic music to sort of mask the fact that everyone is going to be paying so much more. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live on location in Winnipeg today. We are in Winnipeg's North End. We are at Pritchard and McGregor. We're in the historic Labour Temple, Ukrainian Labour Temple here. This is the site of the breakfast that's going to be happening later, the Local Investment Toward Employment Light Breakfast. So we're going to hear more about that organization, how they help people with employment in our community. And this breakfast is their annual fundraiser. It's a nonprofit organization for their food hamper program, which, as you can imagine, has a lot of need this year. So stay tuned. Also this hour on CBC, we are going to be talking about the history of this place. His grandfather helped build it in 1918. We have a special guest who will join us to talk about the Ukrainian Labour Temple, which is today's community studio. Also, we start with a different story entirely. If you're feeding the kids their cereal this morning, what cartoon characters are on the box? I'm asking that because there's new research that shows the persuasive power of Paw Patrol and other characters on children's diets. So that is coming up this half hour. Right now, let's go to Megan Ketchison. She's back at 541 Portage Ave in our CBC studios with today's news headlines.
Good morning. The province needs help to tackle derelict buildings. That from the Association of Manitoba Municipalities. The City of Brandon sponsored the resolution at this week's fall convention that the city had abandoned property bylaw on the books for 2 years. But Brandon's mayor says these properties still cost the city a lot of money and they need help from the province. And both sides are claiming victory in the latest round of a legal fight over moose hunting in Manitoba. The Manitoba Wildlife Federation sought an injunction to stop a check stop just outside of Bloodvein First Nation. It was allegedly used to prevent some licensed moose hunters from crossing earlier this fall. The King's Bench Justice denied the injunction, but also said the First Nation has a right to protest the issuing of licenses on its territory, but can't set up an illegal blockade. And I'll have more at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Megan.
Thanks.
And Megan Ketchison back, as she said, at 6:30. Well, when we were riding over here to the Labour Temple, or driving over rather, Abby, there was like a light skiff of snow across the street, just enough to make you, understand what season it is. Not enough to stay. It's a little windy though out here.
Yeah, a little windy and a blustery start to Friday across the province. We're seeing light snow already falling in most of the regions in the southern part of the province, while up north we're seeing that deep freeze in some regions. Also, Winnipeg right now, we're sitting at a cold -7, light snow falling. Expect a cloudy day with a good chance of, those flurries sticking around all day, pushing along with a light northerly wind, and we'll top out highs around -5 today, while across the southern part of the province, Brandon, Port Prairie, Dauphin, Gimli, we're seeing a bit of a mixed bag. Brandon sitting at a frigid -15 at this time. Before that, mix of sun and clouds would warm things up to -8 later, while across the rest of the province, mostly hovering between -6 and -7 for daytime highs today. Up north, we're seeing around -11 and -13 in Thompson at this time. Temperatures will be pushing to about -14 later in the afternoon. So across board, we're having the white stuff already dropping, and that will definitely be, this weather shift is going to be affecting, conditions on the road. So you might want to give yourself extra time. Look out for people and students. But Winnipeg right now, it is -7 and we have light snow falling.
Yes, thank you, Abby. And also look out for shoppers. Whether you support it or not, Black Friday is upon us. That means it's going to be busier traffic-wise with foot traffic, and also, I suspect, a little bit later, probably around your shopping centers, people looking for those deals. It is right now in traffic a pretty good situation. If you do need to update anything, please let us know. We'll pass it along here on CBC. Call the commuter line 204-788-3093. Well, you might recall stories in Manitoba about the rights of hunters. When you're on the East Coast, the story there is often about the rights of fishers. The commercial lobster season has officially opened this week out in southwest Nova Scotia. This is an area, though, that's been experiencing a rash of violence. Locals and some commercial fishers blame the black market for lobster. They allege, though, it's caused by First Nations overfishing and threatening stocks. A new investigation by the Fifth Estate, though, by CBC finds little evidence to back that up. Fifth Estate co-host Stephen D'Souza joined me to explain.
Good morning, Marcy.
So what kind of crime are we talking about here?
It's the kind of crime you don't normally associate with small towns, and this has happened over the last couple of years. In an area called Clare, which is in southwest Nova Scotia, there's a population of about 8,500 that's spread out, and it's about a 3-hour drive from Halifax. Think of picturesque fishing villages along the coast, and lobster and the lobster industry is a multi-billion-dollar business, and the waters in that region are among the most lucrative. And so it seems that this big business has brought some big city crime along with it. And so we've seen incidents of arson, including an RCMP vehicle burned last year. Homes and property have been damaged. People have been assaulted and threatened. Even a case of a lobster processor having his home shot at. And what it's done is instilled a lot of fear in the community. We tried to speak with a number of victims, and no one wanted to go on the record because they were afraid of retribution. And that's because the RCMP says a lot of this crime connects back to people who were attempting to speak out about the criminal activity in their area.
So what does any of this have to do with lobster?
So there is a black market for lobster in the region, lobster being sold for cash, and then those sales go unreported to government authorities. It's estimated that this is worth millions and millions of dollars. The players include unlicensed brokers, processing plants, and the government basically says that the opportunity for these unreported sales could happen anywhere along sort of the supply chain. But what we're seeing, though, is that a lot of this crime and this black market is being blamed, unfairly it seems, on First Nations. The allegation is that they're fishing out of season and selling their catch illegally, and that's in turn creating a black market, which is then attracting this criminal element. But we wanted to know, how fair are these allegations? And so this is something we look at in the documentary. And on the crime aspect of it, we know that the RCMP has been looking into it. They formed a task force, and after a 13-month investigation, they arrested 4 men, and they allege that these men were responsible primarily for the violence in the area. These men are facing a number of charges related to drugs, arson, intimidation, as well as charges related to the lobster fishery. The RCMP held a town hall last week to inform the community about these charges. Let's listen to RCMP Sergeant Jeff LeBlanc on the reaction he got when he announced the arrests.
You could see the crowd take like a big gulp of air, like it was a big burden lifted off their shoulders. And I didn't foresee this to be as impactful as it actually was for the community. They were very receptive and hopeful that we're continuing on a path where we can bring the community back to what it was.
And Marcy, an important point here is that the 4 men charged, none of them are from a First Nations, and it seems the investigation and charges focused more on drugs, on cocaine and drug trafficking and the violence associated with that, not just the lobster fishery.
What about the unreported sales of lobster then that you mentioned? Is that happening, and who's responsible for that?
So, as I mentioned, the majority of the blame is being placed on First Nations. But again, we wanted to look at these allegations and see what the truth is. And so we spoke with a man who was previously worked as an unlicensed broker, and he said he had a lot of knowledge of the black market. His name is Zach Thibault, and he's facing a number of charges related to threats and intimidation. He says unreported cash sales are a tax dodge and everyone is in on it. Here he is speaking with CBC Nova Scotia reporter Richard Cuthbertson.
All the business that you did, your unreported sales, how much of that was Indigenous, how much non-Indigenous?
10% Indigenous. 10-15%.
And the rest is non-Indigenous?
Yeah.
Do you think this is all being sort of used to fuel this sort of energy against the Indigenous fisheries?
Absolutely. Or whether it be a scapegoat or just a lightning rod.
How does the black market play a role in the bigger fight over lobster harvesting rights in the area then?
So there is an ongoing fight that's been going on for decades over who has the rights to fish and harvest lobster in the region. On the one hand, you have First Nations. On the other side, you have the commercial fishermen who are limited to the commercial season, which is in this area November until May. And the commercial fishers have a certain set number of licenses, and they also have a set number of traps. There's a lot of rules around that. First Nations have treaty rights that in some cases allow them to fish outside of those seasons. There are a patchwork of rules and agreements, but some of those rights are not fully defined by the law. So when First Nations try to assert those rights, which in some cases date back to treaties signed in the 1700s, that causes a lot of tension and in some cases violence, which back in 2020 made national headlines. So that's one aspect of this debate. Another aspect is another set of accusations, which is that First Nations are overfishing and they're threatening the stock. So we looked into that as well, and we obtained a memo from Fisheries and Oceans Canada, which acknowledges that a small number of First Nations lobster is being sold off the books. But it also notes that the overall catch on the commercial side is trending down, but it says the decrease has not been directly linked to First Nations fishing. And this is something Mi'kmaq First Nations in the region have been saying for years, that their percentage of the fishery is so small that they don't have a major impact on things like the black market or the overall health of the stock. Here's Shelley Denny. She's a biologist who works for the Unama'ki Institute of Natural Resources.
The level at which the Mi'kmaq are harvesting, even if they're harvesting during seasons where the lobster industry isn't, the impact would be minimal.
Now, the DFO memo also notes that while the commercial catch is trending lower, overall the lobster stock in the region is in the healthy zone. It recognizes, the DFO memo does, that the fishing industry has been leveling a lot of accusations against First Nations, but points out the commercial fishers are also facing a number of other pressures, including high operating costs and tariffs. So there are a lot of things at play here, a lot of overlapping factors which lead to this debate over fishing rights in the region.
Stephen, thank you for this. I know, of course, there's more in your report on Fifth Estate. We appreciate what you've shared with us this morning.
Thank you, Marcy.
Stephen D'Souza is a co-host with the Fifth Estate from CBC. We reached him last week to talk about this. He was in Toronto. Their special report called Trapped on the Water airs tonight at 9 o'clock. You can catch it on CBC Television and GEM. You can also watch their report right now on YouTube.
This winter, help make the season kind in support of Harvest Manitoba. All it takes is one can of food, $1, or even 1 hour of your time. Your generosity will help those in need and bring us closer together as Manitobans. Join us as we donate a day of programming in support of Harvest Manitoba December 5th. Visit cbc.ca/kindmb for more.
I can already tell you, though, that the details for Manitoba are, as mentioned, December 5th. So we're a week from today to be talking about the need in community, and there is a lot. I don't have to tell you that. Part of what we're doing out in our community studio today is to also talk about in Winnipeg's North and West End specifically. We're going to be talking this morning about what that need looks like. This is the Local Investment Toward Employment, or LIGHT, 28th annual Wild Blueberry Pancake Breakfast. So later this morning, we are going to see the space behind me filled with people. I'm at the Ukrainian Labor Temple at Pritchard and McGregor. Corey and I are out here. So this breakfast supports their food bank program. Their food hamper program. I keep saying food bank. But their food hampers, actually, they have 300 of them that they'll be able to give this year. Last year, that number was higher. They've lost some community partnerships. But also they said it's because, and this has really stayed with me, which is why I'm repeating it, they told us and told CBC that they can have fewer hampers with a proper amount of food, or they can do more hampers but have insufficient amounts of food in there. Now, isn't that saying something about the need and the food prices in community? So we'll hear more about light as we go along this morning. Well, speaking of food, let's talk about the advertising. If you are someone that visits the grocery store and buys for kids, you might notice that a lot of the unhealthy snacks for kids feature these cartoon characters. It is so common. A researcher at the University of Ottawa says it's a problem and it needs to be addressed. We're going to hear more about this research. Monique Pauvin-Kent says one only needs to look at a new study that shows 90% now of products that feature cartoon characters are high in sugar, salt, or fat. This comes from the University of Calgary. Pauvin-Kent is the School of Epidemiology and Public Health in the Faculty of Medicine at the University of Ottawa, and she joins us from that city. Good morning.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine. So why are characters like Spider-Man or Paw Patrol so powerful in shaping what kids want?
Well, kids absolutely love those characters. So the impact of food marketing is a function of two different things. First of all, kids' exposure to the marketing, and then the power of that marketing. And the power is the content and the design of the advertising. So essentially, cartoon characters on products, that increases the power of the marketing on the packaging. And there's two types of cartoon characters that are really, really appealing to kids. Those brand mascots that are owned by food and beverage companies like Tony the Tiger or Toucan Sam, they're on half of the child-targeted products. And then also licensed characters. Those are characters like Minions and Paw Patrol and Mickey Mouse that come from TV and movies and video games and even from toys. And kids just find seeing those characters on packaging, like it just has such a great appeal to them, and they just want to eat those products and have their parents buy those products for them. So
I have to check with the parent here who's with me. So Corey Funk's got two little ones. How old are your kids again?
Three and one.
Yeah, tiny. And does this resonate?
Yeah, it does. We have Bluey cereal, and he's psyched about it.
Yeah,
there's blue. Yeah. So, but we try to limit it. Like we still have like Rice Krispies, but still Rice Krispies have cartoons on it too. Now that I think about it, so it's I don't know.
Well, start taking notes because the next question's about what's in it.
Oh.
90% of the products, just to repeat what I said in the introduction, is that right, Monique? That 90% of products with characters are high in sugar, salt, or saturated fat?
That's absolutely correct. And it's just kind of an indicator that our food environment, so that's kind of all of the physical, economic, and social factors that influence kind of the foods people see and actually choose to eat. That food environment is not designed to encourage healthy eating amongst children. So we've seen similar findings across other media and settings. So whether we're looking at television advertising or digital marketing or even advertising like in arenas and recreation centers, the majority of foods and beverages that are advertised to kids fall into that less healthy category, meaning that they're typically highly processed and usually high in sugar, fat, or salt.
I should back up for just a moment and ask you a bit more about the study. So what stood out to you most in the research about how often characters are used to sell unhealthy food?
Yeah, well, it was the frequency that actually stood out to me because there are just so many of these products. So 2,700 products is the number that was found, and that was across 4 cities in Canada. So Calgary, Toronto, Quebec City, and Halifax. And those child-targeted products are in every food category. So obviously we found lots of them in kind of, candies and cereals, cookies and fruit snacks, but also across all sorts of other food categories. So, and so just tons and tons of these products that are trying to like really hook kids in.
So what do parents realistically do when the marketing is everywhere? And then I'm going to double barrel the question, just let you take it. And then what should restrictions or what can the government do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't think it's easy to raise healthy kids in our current environment. So I've done a lot of research on television advertising and digital marketing as well. And we're estimating that kids see over 2,000 food and beverage ads on TV a year. And in digital media, that number is 3,000. So when you add those two together, we're up to 5,000. And then when you include packaging and then what they're seeing in other settings and in their communities, I mean, how can a a parent really compete with that? They can't. Even if, a child or a parent is telling their child to eat healthily at every meal, every day of the year, they can't compete with the number of messages that kids are getting to eat unhealthily. And so the government, you're absolutely right, needs to step up with regulations to help support parents.
Regulations like what, though? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because marketers are going to say, no way am I taking my happy mascot off. Everybody loves him and he's friendly. And regulations around the images or regulations around how much sugar's in those products?
Yeah, well, regulations just restricting the amount of food advertising they're seeing, but also the power of the advertising. So getting rid of those characters and that type of thing on products and in advertisements that are on television and digital media. So Health Canada came up with a proposed policy in 2023, and that policy hasn't moved forward yet. It was just focused on television and digital media, but they really need to move forward with regulations and also to include product packaging. I think this study shows that really, really clearly, and that will help support parents, help them raise healthy kids. So,
thank you very much for your analysis this morning. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
That's Monique Pauvin-Kent. She's a professor in the School of Epidemiology and Public Health and the Faculty of Medicine over at the University of Ottawa. No guilt, no shame, parents. We get it. It's really hard. You can see Corey's face here as he fessed up. I'm Marcy Marcusa. We're out on location, Corey and I. We're at the Ukrainian Labor Temple at Pritchard and McGregor, and we are here for the Light 28th Annual Wild Blueberry Breakfast, which later will support food hampers in our community. So we'll talk more about that. In the next half hour, his grandfather helped build the Ukrainian Labor Temple back in 1918, and then because he was an actor, he performed on the stage that's just right beside us here. We have a special guest to remind us about the deep history of our community studio today. We also have business news coming up right after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Megan Ketchison in Winnipeg. At 6:30, we have light snow and -7 with a wind chill of -14. Mainly cloudy and flurries today, a high of -5. The head of the union that represents Manitoba nurses says the system failed the family of a woman who died last weekend. 82-year-old Genevieve Price died after what started as a swollen hand, then worsened over the course of 30 hours at 2 Winnipeg emergency departments. Darlene Jackson is the president of the Manitoba Nurses Union. She says Price's daughter Michelle is a home care nurse who waited 10 hours with her mother at the Grace Hospital ER. She then made the difficult decision the next morning to leave her in the hands of the system to go to work.
She said, if I knew that if I didn't go to work that day, none of my clients in home care would get care. They would all be canceled. Or one of my colleagues who was already overworked and overscheduled would end up having to do extra.
By the time Price's daughter had finished work, her mother had taken a turn for the worse. She died a few hours later. Price's daughter issued a statement Thursday, taking current and former governments to task for the state of the healthcare system. Clowns, racist, misogynist, criminal snivellers, and tofu eaters. That's a partial list of insults hurled between the NDP and progressive conservatives during question period at the Manitoba legislature on Thursday. PC leader Abhi Khan even brought up old criminal charges against Premier Wab Kinew.
The Premier is not answering any questions. We have to change our strategy, and our strategy today was to do as the NDP are doing.
The NDP minister, Tracy Schmidt, meanwhile, blamed the poor decorum on the PCs.
Question period is opposition time. It's up to the opposition to set the tone, and I think we saw the tone that they wanted to set today.
Question period was so unruly, Speaker Tom Lindsay had to apologize at one point. A violent attack at St. Anne Collegiate sent a student to hospital this week. St. Anne police say another student has been arrested. The incident was caught on video and shared, prompting a warning by the school's principal. The CBC's Christopher Garreau reports, and a warning, there are some details here that some may find disturbing.
CBC has seen one of the videos shared online by students. The victim was confronted by a group of other teens in front of the school. He sat on a planter, not engaging. That's when one of the group can be seen grabbing him, throwing him to the ground. The victim was kicked in the ribs and punched before having his head repeatedly stomped on as he tried to cover the back of his head with his hands. The victim has since been released from hospital with minor injuries. The principal sent a letter to parents saying he made clear to everyone at the school that standing by and filming before getting help was not okay. He added, students need to look out for each other. Christopher Garreau, CBC News, Steinbach.
In national news, we are officially going to find out this morning whether or not Canada dodged a recession. If the numbers for September show even a little bit of growth, we can confirm Canada avoided a technical recession. But as Peter Armstrong reports, that distinction won't mean much to those Canadians suffering in a clearly weak economy.
The deal Prime Minister Mark Carney announced with Alberta yesterday is aimed at boosting growth in Canada.
This is Canada building with Alberta, building with Canada, building for today, but building very much for the future.
The key word there is future. All these plans will help grow GDP down the road. But BMO's chief economist Douglas Porter says the defining characteristic of the Canadian economy right now is weakness.
There's no debate that the economy struggled through the middle part of the year with all the trade uncertainty.
Bradley Saunders, North American economist with Capital Economics, believes economic activity expanded in September, but he says growth may remain weak until 2027.
We have growth below 1% for a little while. So yeah, avoiding a technical recession, but we're not getting back towards sort of the 1.5 to 2% figures that you want to see until second half of next year into 2027.
And even that meager forecast is contingent on the trade war with the U.S. not getting any worse. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
Both sides are claiming victory in the latest round of a legal fight over moose hunting in Manitoba. The Manitoba Wildlife Federation sought an injunction to stop a check stop just outside of Bloodvein First Nation. It was set up to stop drugs and alcohol from entering the community, but it was also allegedly used to prevent some licensed moose hunters from crossing earlier this fall. King's Bench Justice Theodore Bach said the First Nation has a right to protest the issuing of licenses on its territory, but not by the means of an illegal blockade. Kevin Toyne is the lawyer representing the Wildlife Federation.
Manitoba's roads are for all Manitobans, and no one has the rights to blockade them. And Justice Bach's decision is consistent with that. And I think that's one of the most important messages that people can take from today's decision. No one has the right to blockade a provincial highway.
Bach nevertheless denied the Federation's application for an injunction. And that's the CBC News for Winnipeg. You can always find more on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks very much, Megan.
Thank you.
Megan Ketchison is back at 541 Portage Avenue in our news center at CBC. We are on location here at the Ukrainian Labor Temple at Pritchard and McGregor this morning in Winnipeg. I was mentioning to you, Abby, earlier that it really does feel like we had a seasonal shift. We knew this would happen throughout the week, but seeing that snow sort of blow across the roadways this morning is a reminder we're into it now.
Yes, Marcy, and that's the condition across most of the province this morning. We see light snow falling, and even in the southern part of the province, we're getting our share of the snow that we've been experiencing in the northern part and towards the Parkland region and around Brandon for a few days now. Winnipeg also getting light snow falling at this time. 7 degrees in the city. Expect it to be more like a cloudy day with this flurries pushing along light northerly winds and topping out our highs near -5 later today before we see more like mainly cloudy conditions into Saturday. For the Pembina Valley region, Morden, Winkler, Alton, Morris down to the U.S. border, we're looking at -8, also having light snow there. Your high will reach -7 later today. And in the Westman region, Brandon tracking it towards Nipawin this morning, starting off clear at a frigid -15, but the sun will make its appearance. Then you see a mix of sun and clouds that would warm you up slightly to about -8 later in the day. For Brandon and the rest of the Parkland region, we're looking at -9. Light snow also falling in that part of the province. Your high would get to -7 under mainly cloudy conditions. Gimli, good morning. You are at -8 at this time. Mainly cloudy how there. That's going to hold this good chance of flurries to stay with you for most of the day. Then you see temperatures get to about -6 later. For the powerful influence surrounding communities, we're looking at temperatures hover between -9 and -11 at this time. Light snow falling. That should clear later. And you see a mix of sun and clouds that will just let you hold steady around -9 for most of the day. Thompson is colder at -13 at this time. light snow falling. This light snow continues through the day. Your temperatures just stays close to minus 11 for the rest of the day. In Churchill, we're at minus 12. Light snow also falling, feeling pretty cold there. Temperatures drops to minus 14 later because of the wind. It makes it feel colder in that part of the province. So it's a chilly Friday across the entire province with snowy conditions giving way to cold and mainly cloudy skies this afternoon. But Winnipeg and the rest of the Red River Valley region, we're looking at a light snow falling, temperatures around minus 7, and we only warm up to minus 5 later today. And because of this snow we're getting, remember the roads are going to be kind of slippery for commuters out there, so you need to look out for pedestrians, students, and cyclists because just give yourself enough time to slow down. So that's the condition out there, Marcy.
All right. Thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're right about needing to have a bit of time to slow down. Also, just to reiterate here, if you have a problem on the highways this morning, 511, check before you head out. I was just checking Winnipeg Traffic Management Center on X this morning, and nothing new so far, so that should be good. Remember, it is Black Friday. That means later you're going to have shopping traffic and potentially, of course, around malls and shopping spaces. You're going to see some backups and wonder, why is it so busy here right now? But that could, in fact, be the reason. It is 21 minutes to 7 o'clock on CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Next on the show, it's time for business news. Crystalie Ramlakan joins us via Zoom. Hello to you.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So Prime Minister Mark Carney and Alberta Premier Danielle Smith were all over the news yesterday with their joint agreement on this path forward for the new pipeline to the BC coast. What should people understand from a business perspective?
Well, the federal government and Smith are framing this as a chance to diversify the economy and lessen dependence on the U.S. So the centerpiece of this memorandum of understanding is an agreement by the federal government to help facilitate a pipeline that will carry 1 million barrels of oil a day from Alberta's oil patch to an export terminal on the BC coast, where the product will be shipped mostly to Asian markets. And the agreement stresses that the pipeline will be privately constructed and financed, and the intention is to have some Indigenous co-ownership. Now, if the pipeline is built, both governments will also work with oil giants to create the world's largest carbon capture utilization and storage project. But BC says it has not been consulted, and any pipeline also faces strong opposition from coastal First Nations. And in reaction to all of this, of course, we know Liberal MP Stephen Guilbeault has resigned from Carney's cabinet. Now, Alberta is supposed to present its plan for review by July 1st after Indigenous consultation and negotiations with BC, but there is no guarantee a pipeline will be built. A company is also still needed to even make it happen.
Let's go to another story this morning. Molson Coors is accusing a former manager of a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. What are these details?
Yeah, so Molson Canada is accusing the ex-manager of embezzling millions of dollars in an intricate fraud scheme allegedly involving fake vendors, shell companies, the president of a major pub chain, and a pair of married couples.
Hello.
So the brewing giant claims the former Molson Canada sales director oversaw a complex scheme to defraud the company of millions of dollars that later involved two subordinates as well. So the company says the manager exploited his authority to approve fraudulent invoices from a pair of shell companies that in turn funneled secret payments back to him and his wife. So the company says the invoices have drained more than $9 million since 2021. Though, none of these allegations have been proven in court, and a lawyer representing the former employee and his wife say they reject these allegations. But still, Molson Canada is calling for millions of dollars in damages.
It's kind of been a week where we have allegations and also some confirmed stories against managers and CEOs with, questionable behavior caught on mic. Yeah. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's finish with Black Friday here. There's some evidence that people are shopping differently this year.
Yeah, so, shoppers are not just bargain hunting. Consumer insight firm Vivid Data says Canadians are reshaping how they shop. So it says they're turning to a mix of digital and in-person cues to inform their decisions. And it says, people are going to wait for a deal from a promotional email. They'll switch brands. They don't have, a ton of loyalty when it comes to trying to finding a deal. Or they'll listen to an online social media influencer that they trust. So for more on this, here is Pat Pellegrini, who is the president and CEO of Vivid Data.
So they're very intentional here about, using every channel and every piece of information available to them. And they are looking for a deal, but they are very intentional about, whether they're going to go to secondhand, whether they're going to go online, whether they're going to go in person, and they know what they're looking for.
And the firm says Canadians are treating shopping like content to consume or entertainment. Anything out there catching your eye for Black Friday or anything you've been seeing, Marcy?
Well, truth be told, there's a Canadian company that makes these beautiful leather head covers. They're on the East Coast. They're very expensive, and sometimes on Black Friday, right in the morning, if you get in, they have like a sale early in the morning. But I kind of love the idea of just a couple of guys that started this company, and they they started stitching these things. Now they're a bit bigger, but yeah, they're very cool. So that is an online thing, and then otherwise locally, I don't know. Last year I shopped here at the Light Breakfast for a lot of folks because they sell soups and things that support their initiatives, and so I filled the basket with some of that stuff. How about you?
There have been some things that I've been intrigued by or, looking for deals on things that I actually need, like something new for rebuilding a kitchen. But I'm trying to, I think, avoid the consumerism. I'm like, you know what, that 20% off, it's not a good enough deal for me. I think that I can, just wait. I'm just looking for that dopamine hit, from that shopping. And then you have it and you're like, well, I don't know.
I'm a stereotypical Winnipegger here. I know people don't love this label all the time, but I mean, I need it to be 50 or 70 off. That's I have an entry point for today. All right, Crystal Lee, thank you very much.
Thanks, Marcy.
That is Crystal Lee Ramlakan with Business News. If you want to weigh in on whether or not you're going to be shopping today or not, or whether or not you're going to be waiting and doing any Cyber Monday stuff, or you're going to be waiting for Giving Tuesday, how are you thinking about consumerism this year? 788-3205. You know that live during the show, I can always hear Abby in my ear, right? Abby Adiyami, who does the weather, is also our tech on the board. He just whispered in my ear, "You're cheap." True, and I'm owning it. It is 6:45 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app and YouTube. Abby's in my ear because Abby and Darren Marash are back at our studios on Portage Avenue. Corey and I are out at the Ukrainian Labor Temple. In a few minutes here from our community studio this morning, we're going to hear from a man who cares about giving tours about this place for a couple of reasons. First, because of the heritage of the space, but second, because it's personal. His grandfather was one of the volunteers that helped build this place in 1918, and then would go on to be on stage here as an actor. So we're going to get that story coming up. Right now, speaking of the stage, we have music this morning from two-time Juno Award-winning artist William Prince. He has a new album out this fall. It's called Further from the Country. We've been kind of rolling out the new tunes on CBC, and this was one of the new ones. It's called More of the Same on 89.3 FM.
I don't ever wanna bring you down. I just wanna see you shine and hold your crown. And when someone asks me how I got to know you, I'll get to say, love chose me and I choose to receive it. It's hard to believe, but I'm gonna believe it. And I'm only gonna speak good things if I can help it. Worry less about the future, stop comparing myself. Be happy with what I have in hopes of more of the same. How could I complain? could I complain? Some of the time I get uneasy, some of the time. But when you're around me, it feels like a Valium inside a big old piece of strawberry pie. And when they ask me the keys to my success, I'll just laugh, say my best guess. Love chose me and I choose to receive it. It's hard to believe, but I'm gonna believe it. And I'm only gonna speak good things if I can help it. Worry less about the future, stop comparing myself. Be happy with what I have and hope some more of the same. How could I complain with more of the same? How could I complain with more of the same?
A little bit of William Prince on your Friday morning on CBC. We keep rolling out the tracks from his new stuff that came out further from the country. The new LP came out, it's his 5th. In October, this track, More of the Same. If you want to catch him in person, April 25th, Centennial Concert Hall, 7 o'clock. Don't buy tickets this morning, though, because I don't have mine yet, and there's only a few left. I'm just kidding. Check it out online. Apparently, there are limited seats, though, for that one. Well, speaking of music, we're actually sitting beside a stage today, and that is because our community studio is the beautiful Ukrainian Labor Temple. Later this morning, the community will come together here for the 28th annual Light Breakfast. So somebody actually even said, I heard, Marcy, where are the pancakes? I should be mentioning on air, first serving is at 8 o'clock. So 8 o'clock, it goes from 8 o'clock until 11 o'clock. There's 2 servings and seatings, but they're kind of loose with that, they say. So come on down. There's tickets at the door if you don't have them already. This place, though, has so much history within these walls. We really can't resist hearing a bit of that this morning on the show. So you might not know all of it. It was built in 1918. It was finished in 1919. And you'll know that year, the year of Winnipeg's historic general strike. Tim Gordienko is the tour coordinator for the temple. He's also a counselor with the Winnipeg branch of the Association of United Ukrainian Canadians. And he's here up early. Hi, Tim.
Hi, good morning.
I love that you care about this place. Tell me a little bit about why you care about the temple.
It's just because it's been in the family that helped, build it, and it just feels like home. I don't know, grew up here, so, I've been here all my life, pretty much.
Really? So
yeah.
who was part of the building of this place? Because it was built by volunteers back in the day.
Volunteers, yeah. My grandfather was one of the volunteers that helped build this place.
That's so cool.
Yeah, he was also involved in the drama.
Okay.
Group.
He was an actor I was mentioning on the air,
yes.
so he would have performed on this stage.
He would have, yes.
Yeah.
What
was it like? You said you grew up with this place. What brought you here in your life as a Winnipegger?
It's just part of the Ukrainian community that I was part of, and my friends were here, so I joined in. I actually started Ukrainian dancing here at 13, which is kind of late. My friends have been dancing since 4 or 5, but I took it up. I'm not really a great dancer, but it's all about the enthusiasm.
Yeah, it certainly is.
Yeah.
And if you know Ukrainian dancing, there's never enough guys because their knees give out because those moves are hard. When I danced, it was always 2 girls to every guy.
Oh yeah, it's still like that.
Tell me a bit about when you do the tours here. Let's talk about the history. So I mentioned it was completed just before the strike. Volunteers who built it.
Yeah.
But what's the early history of how this came to be? Was it the Ukrainian community? Why did they want a temple like this, a place like this?
Well, they needed space because they were renting theaters around Winnipeg. They were, my head's falling off.
Oh yeah, it's okay. We'll move your headsets
okay.
on. They slip. Yeah.
Yeah, they were renting spaces around Winnipeg, and there was a growing immigrant population, and they realized that they needed a space to meet. And I tell the younger people that this is what social media looked like in 1919.
Yeah.
This is where people came to gather and find out what was going on.
And not only that, I think if I'm right, I think that the population of Ukrainians at that time was about 1,500 people, and yet they fundraised themselves to build this?
Yes, the dedication was incredible.
Yeah.
They not only fundraised, but they actually used their hands to help build it.
Yeah. What happened here in 1919 pertaining to the strike?
The strike, well, they had one of the things they had was the printing presses in the lower level under the stage here. And that was towards the end of the strike, that was actually raided here. And they confiscated a lot of the paperwork, and I believe the printing presses were smashed, people were arrested. So it was pretty dramatic.
Yeah. This was a lot of the action people think about was on Main Street. There was a hall there. I know when we were looking at the anniversary, we learned a lot about the labor history. But this was one of those other locations where supporters were here. And as you said, RCMP came in and said, you're printing this, you're supporting the strike, and they took it down. Although they denied that that's why they were here. But they dismantled the paper.
There were several other labor temples around Winnipeg, but this is the only one that survives and is still active today.
So let's talk about that, because this is a heritage building as well.
Yeah.
And when I first came back here after not being here for many years, I sort of was like, why does it look so good? You guys had a renovation done.
Yeah, in early 2021, it was just before COVID actually hit. We started with major renovations. It all started with putting in accessible lift so that we could hold more events here. People were hesitant to rent because we didn't have access.
Yeah. It's interesting you didn't shy away, though, because putting an accessible lift in here, like we're in a huge auditorium for the sake of radio listeners. They're setting up tables for the breakfast. There's a balcony that still exists behind us. There's huge windows, like they're probably about, what are they, 20 feet high, maybe
At least,
more?
yeah.
Yeah. You guys restored those back to original.
Yeah, they were actually glass blocks before we started.
Wow.
And that was the original design we went back to. So.
And what else did you go back to original in here when you were doing your restoration? The front doors, I heard?
Front doors, yeah. The entranceway was restored.
Yeah. Why did you decide that it was important? I know you said to make it more accessible, but when you renovate a historic building, and we're looking at burgundies and blues and this is a neoclassical design, so a lot of design in the moldings and such, it can be very expensive. So why did the community care enough to sort of say, no, we're going to do this right?
Well, this is we call this the Mother Hall, because our organization stretches across Canada, and this was not the very first. Welland beat us by a few weeks. But this is the Mother Hall. This is the biggest hall in Canada, and it's still here. And we wanted to keep it as a legacy. We actually have a foundation that we have a pool of money to draw on to maintain the building.
Yeah. Are any of the original features that we can't see still here, like under the stage? Are there still printing press things?
No, the printing presses are gone. The space is still there.
Yeah.
The stage has a lot of the original electrical there that was working up until our renovations, and then we had to decommission it because it's all old fuses and stuff.
Wow.
So it's still there.
That's saying
That's
something.
part of the tour.
I mentioned you do the tours. What are people most interested when they come? And if someone's listening and they want to do a tour, how do they do that?
You can contact our branch here. I believe the numbers are around somewhere.
Can
I
you
don't
check
have it
on
offhand.
Facebook or social media?
Yeah, we're on social
Can
media.
look them
I'm
up.
not, but
Yeah.
we are.
How do you hope that the hall will be used today? You said the lift will help you rent it out as well, because it's not just been the Ukrainian community that's used the space over the years now.
That's right. It was served the Ukrainian community originally, but as we are today, we are serving the local community still for other groups that settle in this area.
Yeah.
Everything from weddings to breakfasts.
Yeah, which will be served here later this morning.
Yeah.
In the last minute, we got to take a bit of a detour, because when Tim sat down, he brought this amazing poster. I know probably on YouTube you can see it just in the background here. But there's you, dressed in Ukrainian dance wear. And this isn't you as a kid dancing. This is you now.
Yes, that's me now.
What is Zerka? This is your group?
This is our senior adult dance group that we formed. Some people are new that have never danced before. We welcome anybody who would like to come out and try it. And some of it we've just rekindled. You know, the spirit is still there, and we still want to dance.
I sure love that.
Yeah.
So weekly rehearsals on Saturday mornings
Saturday mornings, yeah. Just drop by.
At the Ukrainian Labor Temple.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I love it. What does it give to you when you get up and dance?
You know, anytime I see Ukrainian dancing, my feet are going and my heart is pounding. It's part of you, you know.
Thank you so much for coming in. I love that you're, we have that whole through line. Here's Tim, still on stage all these years later, as his grandfather built this place and was one of the first on stage.
Yeah, and my granddaughter's actually in this picture. She dances too.
It's all in the family.
All in the family.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Little of the history of our community studio this morning, and there's a lot of it, as you heard. Tim Gordienko is the tour coordinator over here for the Ukrainian Labor Temple, also a counselor with the Winnipeg branch of the Association of United Ukrainian Canadians. So you can look up that association if you want more information about the temple and the tours. Azurka is the name of the dance group. It is 3 minutes to 7 o'clock, and let's go back to CBC on Portage Ave for our headlines with Megan Ketchison.
Well, Manitoba's premier and opposition leader traded insults at question period. They called each other clowns, racist, misogynist, criminals, fake feminists, and tofu eaters. Question period was so unruly, the speaker had to apologize. And the principal of St. Anne Collegiate has a warning for students after a teen was attacked and sent to hospital this week. There are videos that were taken of the incident and shared on social media. The principal sent a letter to parents saying it was not okay for people to be standing around and taking videos of what was happening. And we'll have more coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thanks very much, Megan.
Thank you.
In the weather forecast today, Abby's been mentioning that we've got a bit of a chilly day on hand. There's a skiff of snow, I'm calling it. It's kind of going across the roadways this morning, but not staying. That light snow continues in Winnipeg at -7 right now. Brandon, you're cloudy, -15. Thompson, light snow, -13. We are going to get more flurries, 60% chance of more, a high of -5 in the city of Winnipeg today. Brandon's high is -8, and up in Thompson, you're going to be right around -11. Traffic's been pretty good. If you do have a problem, 788-3093. We'll report it on the air here on CBC. And remember to check 511 if you're heading out on the highways anywhere, just in case. Still ahead, slash, stop, shoot. The ice is full of sleds going at max speed. That's what a women's para-hockey game feels like. But coming up, we're going to talk about why this event is not part of the Paralympics for women. So stay tuned. Also, we'll hit the kitchen here at the Light Breakfast, find out how cooking pancakes can lead to a brighter future for some folks supported by Light who are trying to get on that employment journey. And then to serious matters. The Manitoba Nurses Union, just to reiterate, says the death of an 82-year-old woman who waited hours for care could have been prevented. We'll hear from the CEO of Canada's National Seniors Advocacy.
On the current.
All right, thanks.
Sometimes it feels like being stuck in a swamp where you're sinking into ooze.
The journalist Anna Mailer-Paperny has dealt with treatment-resistant depression for decades. Now she has had a device implanted in her brain as part of a clinical trial to see if electrical stimulation will rewire that brain. Anna Mailer-Paperny coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. After yesterday's deal aimed at boosting Canada's economic growth, today Prime Minister Mark Carney and the rest of the country will have some hard numbers to go on. Statistics Canada releases its third quarter GDP report this hour. The big question, whether Canada successfully avoided a technical recession. While economists say we may have avoided it, many agree the economy remains weak. CBC's senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong has more.
The deal Prime Minister Mark Carney announced with Alberta yesterday is aimed at boosting growth in Canada.
This is Canada building with Alberta, building with Canada, building for today, but building very much for the future.
The key word there is future. All these plans will help grow GDP down the road. But BMO's chief economist Douglas Porter says the defining characteristic of the Canadian economy right now is weakness.
There's no debate that the economy struggled through the middle part of the year with all the trade uncertainty. It does at this point look like we will have avoided the, quote, technical definition of a recession.
Bradley Saunders, North American economist with Capital Economics, believes economic activity expanded in September, but he says growth may remain weak until 2027.
We have growth below 1% for a little while. So yeah, avoiding a technical recession, as you say, but we're not getting back towards sort of the 1.5 to 2% figures that you want to see until second half of next year into 2027.
And even that meager forecast is contingent on the trade war with the U.S. not getting any worse. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
Also happening this morning, the World Health Organization is warning measles is often the first disease to resurge when vaccination rates drop. And in parts of the world where war, displacement, or misinformation are rampant, that's exactly what's happening. It's all detailed in the WHO's Measles Control Report Card. And as Jennifer Yoon tells us, Canada, too, is a hotspot.
At a medical complex in Gaza City, UNICEF nurses and doctors are catching children up on their measles vaccines. Childhood immunization coverage in the region dropped almost 30% since the start of the war. We didn't know where to go for the shot, says one woman whose grandson got behind on his vaccines during the war. Millions of children in conflict zones are underprotected against measles, according to a new report from the World Health Organization. It's one of the reasons why cases are surging around the world, with an estimated 11 million infections last year. Dr. Kate O'Brien heads the World Health Organization's Department of Immunizations.
Unfortunately, for much of the world, the alarms are ringing. Measles cases are surging, outbreaks are increasing, and too many children remain unprotected.
Most people in low and middle income countries don't really hesitate to receive these vaccines.
But social unrest isn't the only factor driving the surge, says Dr. Brian Ward, an infectious diseases microbiologist at McGill University Health Centre. Measles cases are also increasing in countries with stable, robust health systems, like Canada, which officially lost its measles elimination status this year.
In Canada, I think, and other wealthier countries, I think we really need to find a way to communicate the risks.
That will involve building trust with under-vaccinated communities and fighting misinformation, Ward says. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
Donald Trump is taking to social media to rail against U.S. immigrants. In a blistering tirade, the president suggests, without evidence, that immigrants cause much of the crime across the U.S. and vows to introduce what he calls reverse immigration. Trump's post follows news of the death of one of the National Guard members shot Wednesday in Washington. The suspected shooter is an immigrant from Afghanistan. The CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian is in our Washington bureau. Rafi, what more can you tell us about Donald Trump's post?
John, I'm not sure any of us can explain exactly what reverse immigration is, but the president did also announce something that feels a little bit more like an evolution of the policies his administration has talked about since that Wednesday shooting. He says he's going to permanently pause all migration from what he calls third world countries and remove anyone who is not a net asset to the United States, though he does not define the metrics for that in any way. We'd already seen the Department of Homeland Security say yesterday it was reviewing all asylum cases approved under U.S. President Joe Biden. And since Wednesday, we know already there has been a pause on processing any paperwork for Afghan nationals specifically. Now, the president also attacked some of his political opponents in that post, such as Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, saying she is always, quote, swaddled in her hijab and complaining about how badly she is treated. He also insulted her home country, Somalia, as a decadent nation, and Trump also complained about refugees from Somalia.
Okay, Rafi, let's talk about the reaction to Trump's comments.
United Nations agencies have already come out appealing to Washington, saying it should continue to allow asylum seekers access to the country. Here is Jeremy Lawrence, the UN human rights spokesperson.
All states, regardless, have human rights obligations, particularly when there are protection concerns of people who have fled countries and sought refuge elsewhere. They are entitled to protection under international law and should be given due process.
As for his political rivals, we've not seen anything from Ilhan Omar this morning yet, but she has been pushing back on Trump's previous comments regarding Somalis for days now, John.
Rafi Boudjikanian in our Washington bureau. Thanks so much for this, Rafi.
You're welcome.
The number of deaths in that apartment complex in Hong Kong is climbing dramatically. Hong Kong security chief tells reporters there are now 128 confirmed deaths, and he warns that number is certain to rise. Chris Tang says the search for victims continues. He also says the firefighting operation has ended at the site. Investigators are now on the scene. The cause of the blaze has not yet been determined, but highly flammable material used in a major renovation is believed to have caused the fire to spread quickly. More than half a dozen people have been arrested in connection with the blaze. A church choir welcomes Pope Leo to Istanbul. The pontiff is in Turkey on his first international trip since assuming office in May. As Briar Stewart reports, Canadians are among the celebrating crowds.
Dozens gather in a cathedral in Istanbul to greet Pope Leo.
Peace be with you.
Trips abroad have become a big part of the papacy, and he's in Turkey to commemorate the 1700th anniversary of the Council of Nicaea, an important event in Christianity, which took place in what is now the Turkish city of Iznik. During his speeches, Leo has also been preaching peace and compassion.
The significant presence of migrants and refugees in this country presents the Church with the challenge of welcoming and serving some of the most vulnerable.
More than 3 million Syrian refugees live in Turkey. Outside of the church, the large crowds on the sidewalk are mostly heavily armed police officers, part of a significant security presence. But near one of the metal barriers, hoping to get a glimpse of the first U.S. Pope, Jackie and Martin Isles from Leamington, Ontario. They're in Turkey as part of a tour.
So this would have been the icing on the cake if we got a private audience with the Pope. I love him. I think he's personable. I trust him completely.
And the Americans need him more than ever.
The Pope will be in Turkey for most of the weekend. He'll then head to Lebanon. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Istanbul.
And finally, the bill for the fallout from the Louvre's $102 million jewel heist is officially being passed on to tourists. The museum is hiking its entrance fee. Non-European visitors will now pay €32, up from €22. The fee hike will improve the museum's poor security. The entire renovation plan is estimated at over $933 million.
Mona Lisa, Mona Lisa, men have named you. You're so like the lady with the mystic smile.
Well, the plan is to upgrade security for the Louvre's priceless collections and to give the iconic Mona Lisa its own dedicated, secure gallery.
Mona Lisa's strangeness in your smile.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. Remember, for news anytime, our website, cbcnews.ca. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
To hide a broken heart.
To the holiday season. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Why? Because we are live out in community, and our community studio today is where?
We're at the Ukrainian Labor Temple at 591 Pritchard Avenue.
What are we doing here, Ian Roundtree?
We're having breakfast. It's the 28th annual Wild Blueberry Pancake Breakfast from Local Investment Toward Employment, or LIGHT.
Ian Roundtree is the executive director of LIGHT, and he's absolutely right. Breakfast is on at 8 o'clock here. This is a nonprofit organization, and we wanted to be in community because this is all about helping community today. This is the annual event that helps support their food hamper program, and also, as I said, their official kind of start to the holiday season. As people come together here, there's going to be entertainment and food on later. We're going to learn more about who is cooking. Corey's going to hit the kitchen to find out how some of those first jobs, in fact, that happen through the program's LIGHT supports can really change people's lives. So we're very pleased to be here. Thanks for joining us. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Corey Funk is with me, as I mentioned, and this is 89.3 FM, 990 AM app and YouTube, where you can find us. Information Radio, your morning show. In addition to coverage of LIGHT today, we do have some news of the day we're covering. So one of the stories is the fact that women's para hockey is once again not in the Paralympics. We're going to talk to a Manitoba hockey player who wants to change that. So stay tuned. Also this hour on the show, the Manitoba Nurses Union says the death of an 82-year-old woman who waited hours for care could have been prevented. We'll hear from the CEO of Canada's National Seniors Advocacy Organization about the challenges older adults continue to face when they're waiting for care at hospital emergency rooms here in Manitoba and across the country. So stay tuned. Right now, speaking of news, here's Megan Ketchison with updates.
Well, Hunting Lobby Group is claiming victory, even though its application to end a First Nations check stop was denied. The Manitoba Wildlife Federation sought an injunction to end a check stop just outside of the Bloodvein First Nation. It was originally set up to stop drugs and alcohol from entering the community, but it was also allegedly being used to prevent some of those moose hunters from crossing earlier this fall. And Manitoba's Premier and Opposition Leader traded insults at question period. They called each other's clowns, racist, misogynist, criminals, fake feminists, and even tofu eaters. The question period was so unruly, the Speaker had to apologize. And we'll have more at 7:30.
I'm just trying to imagine, Megan. I mean, how long have you and I worked together?
A long time.
Like, can you imagine us hurling those kinds of things at each other?
No.
Right.
It's,
Yeah.
it just doesn't seem seemly.
It's something that a lot of people are leaning into and questioning. We actually, I've asked both the opposition leader and the premier about it. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
More in the news at 7:30. Right now, we're going to find out about the weather on your Friday, on your Black Friday. Abby, what's it like?
Yeah, snowy start across the province, where the southern regions already seen a lot of those flurries really dropping us, while the brisk chill keeps the temperatures down everywhere you go up north. We're talking about temperatures around to the lake are at -15 at this time. Winnipeg, -17. Light snow still falling, along with mainly cloudy conditions. Now, these light flurries will definitely be hanging around all day. We'll see highs around -5, but we should feel closer to -13 with the wind chill factored in this morning. And across the southern regions, a good chance of flurries through the day. Highs for the regions will be between -6 and -7. Up north, we're looking at chilly -13s to -16s in that part of the province. And because of the snow falling, don't forget the weather is shifting. Watch out for slippery or icy spots. So keep your distance if you're driving.
And 788-3093 if you have any updates. Well, up first this half hour, as I mentioned, women's para ice hockey will not be an event at the 2026 Paralympics in Milan. This has some Manitobans upset. The women's sport has struggled for funding and attention, and it's because on a Paralympic level, para hockey is a mixed event. But a woman's actually never been on the ice with the team. This year was the inaugural World Para Ice Hockey Women's World Championship in Slovakia. Every game there was sold out. Winnipeg's Alyssa White scored a hat trick during the championship. She's 20 years old. She brought home silver with her team. She started playing para ice hockey when she was 13 years old. A year later, she made Team Canada. Now she's training for another session. Training, though, has been difficult as well because of a lack of funding. And she joins us this morning over Zoom. Hi, Alyssa.
Hi.
Tell me a little bit about, I mentioned you're disappointed. What does it feel like to know that women's para ice hockey didn't, get to have a team in Milan 2026?
Yeah, that's definitely disappointing, and it's a hard concept to even grasp, but we're so set on 2030 and to keep pushing for that, and yeah.
As I mentioned, there were sold out crowds where you were playing in the championship. What was it like to play in front of those crowds for you?
Yeah, honestly, that's the best crowd that I've ever played again. It was amazing. Slovakia was a great host. I was so impressed. It exceeded all my expectations.
The Paralympic Committee says they want to see another successful World Championship for women's para hockey before they include it in the Paralympics. How does that make you feel as a player? What do you think of that as an explanation?
Yeah, I understand that they have a format of how they need to do it. So we're just here to get it done. And, once you have the first one, then the second one's a lot easier to get done. So just looking forward to that. And once we get that, looking at the Paralympics in a few years.
There's a heartbreaking story here as well. I mentioned that the team officially is mixed, but there's never been a woman on the ice. So a lot of people, actually, I didn't even realize we had a mixed team. I just always thought it was the men's team. Your teammate, Raphael Toussaint, was part of the 2026 development team. She actually had the intention of being the first woman on the mixed co-ed Paralympic team for Milan next year. But then heartbreakingly last month, she announced she was diagnosed with breast cancer, so that's not going to happen. What was that like to find out that, first of all, news about your friend and teammate, but also that this milestone's unlikely?
Yeah, it's devastating, and I can't even imagine what she's going through and the heartbreak that she's feeling. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's something that was completely out of everyone's control. So just focusing on her battle and cancer and keep pushing and looking forward to the 2030 and honestly just kind of moving forward. And she's the strongest person I know, so I have no doubt that she's going to kick cancer in the butt and that she's going to be back on the ice in no time. And yeah.
2030, obviously you continue to say looking ahead to that with the heartbreak of 2026 not being real for you as a women's team. I was reading a really deep article on CBC about this. One of the quotes that stood out for me came from Claire Buchanan, played 11 seasons with Canada's team for the women, and she said, do the women have to win a gold medal before they get funding? And so it's interesting because when you talk about funding, it's an ongoing challenge. What's it been like for you, the lack of funding as an athlete? What's the impact for you?
Yeah, so it would be honestly so helpful to be funded and to honestly have Hockey Canada's constant support. I mean, it's what every hockey player dreams about. So, and being paid to do what we do, because we do the same that the men do, we're just not paid to do it. Yeah, so I think it would be so helpful in our daily lives, because a lot of us we're in school and we're training, and it's a lot, and ice time is not cheap. So to have that support would make such a big difference. So I think just honestly, just our training and getting that ice time and not having to worry about financials and just focus on being an athlete.
What's the difference between the men and women? You're not paid athletes as para hockey players. Are the men now paid athletes? Is that something they had to fight for as well, or did they automatically get it?
Yes, I do believe they had to fight for it years ago, but they are under Hockey Canada and are paid to do everything, and they're paid to go everywhere. So versus we are not.
And not only are you not, you mentioned people may not really realize this. I mean, is it right? I mean, you're doing your own pitching, fundraising, trying to scramble for ice time?
Yes, we do that all independently, and we do get support here and there, and sponsorships have helped a lot, but we are doing it ourselves.
How does that affect your time to train? I mean, the fact is your job's to be the athlete, so how does that sort of impact that?
Yeah, it's kind of always in the back of your mind of kind of worrying about funding and, will we have the money to go to a camp, or what will the season kind of look? So it definitely puts a damper on it more so because we're so focused on that. But yeah.
And you know the difference it can make firsthand, because is it right? You got $150,000 from Hockey Canada for the championships in Slovakia. So what difference did that make when you had that funding there?
Yeah, that made a huge difference. Like providing equipment that we needed, any medical, our equipment manager, everything like that. So it was so helpful, and just to have that kind of cost covered, because it's not cheap to fly to Europe. It's not cheap to go to Europe, and it's not cheap to enter into tournaments and stuff. So having that cost helped out by them was so helpful.
What do you hope people keep in mind, Alyssa, when talking about women's para hockey, and when thinking about the fact that you guys aren't in the games?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is people aren't really aware. So if you are aware, or we just want people to see us as equal, and we just at the end of the day want to play hockey and want to play at the highest stage possible. I mean, I think every athlete dreams about going to the Olympics or Paralympics. So we just want to have those dreams and see them come reality.
All right, Alyssa. Well, thank you very much, and congratulations on your success in Slovakia. And
Thank you.
And did you get to keep any of the hats or what?
No.
Too bad. I was going to say, I always wondered if when the player scores a hat trick, if they just maybe slide one for a souvenir. Congratulations on that success and to hopefully to getting into the games in the future.
Thank you.
Live via Zoom with us this morning, we have had Alyssa with us. She is a player. Pardon me, I'm just on location here. Alyssa White, making sure I have her last name in front of me. She's 20 years old. She plays para ice hockey for Team Canada and Team Manitoba. As mentioned, they hope to have a women's team on the ice in 2030.
This winter, help us make the season kind by supporting local food banks. Join CBC from December 5th to 7th to kick off the season of giving with a food truck pop-up at Zoo Lights at the Assiniboine Zoo. For a small donation, enjoy a unique dish created by renowned chef Mandel Hitzer of Deer and Almond. 100% of your donation will go directly to Harvest Manitoba. Find more ways to give to food banks in your community at cbc.ca/kind.
7:22 a.m. is the time right now. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thank you for joining us here this Friday morning. We're a week out from Make the Season Kind, but this morning we actually have a community studio as well. We are live getting ready for the Light Breakfast, the 28th annual Local Investment Toward Employment. They're setting up behind us. If you're watching our YouTube stream, you can see the rows of the syrups on the tables. They're sound checking on the stage. We're in the Ukrainian Labor Temple, and this is a beautiful space. It's historic. It's been renovated over the years. Used to be like a movie theater where you're seeing the tables. They actually used to have the chairs angled. And of course, early when it was built and finished during the year of the strike in 1919, this was a place where they were printing and trying to support the union through that. And eventually RCMP raided this space. Maybe no surprise that all these years later, here's Paul Moist, who volunteers at the breakfast. He's a longtime volunteer, former CUPE president, and now also is with the Manitoba Federation Union of Retirees. And you are here with a group of folks. Is that right, Paul?
Well, we brought 10 members of our Federation of Union Retirees, union folks who remain active, supporting trade unions and other causes, and volunteering each year at this breakfast.
Why this one, and how much does it have to do with how Light supports the community, but also the deep labor roots of the space we're sitting in, right?
Labor supports the United Way. We helped co-found the United Way, the first United Way in North America, here in Winnipeg, the Chamber of Commerce and the labor movement. And I was here in 1997 at the first Light Breakfast because labor has always supported Light, which is a United Way agency. It's also a blessing that it's here in the Ukrainian Labor Temple. I know the work you and CBC did on the 100th anniversary of the general strike. I was in the temple here 4 times this summer, taking bus tours in downtown Winnipeg on the general strike, and we always bring people to the Ukrainian Labor Temple. Had a group of folks from across Canada this year. They were gobsmacked and blown away when they came here into the temple. So we're here today to support a good agency, but there's a lot of history, as you say, in these 4 walls.
We were hearing a little bit about it earlier. I think it's lovely that they also managed to renovate. Added a lift here. They brought the windows back to how they were after some 60s, like big glass block went out the way. So these 20-foot windows are now back to restoration. It's really a unique gem when you think about labor halls across Canada. I learned this morning it's actually maybe the only, or if only one of a handful still standing.
There's only a handful, and in much of Western Canada, including Thunder Bay West, there would have been labor halls for different communities, Russian, Finnish in Thunder Bay. Many of them are gone now. This has been preserved, and with the improvements made here, we can now direct unions to have meetings here. It's accessible, the building. There's sufficient washrooms.
Still very much part of the community.
We can keep it alive.
Thank you for being here. Nice to see you.
It's great to see you too.
Paul Moist, one of the volunteers here, longtime volunteer for the Light Breakfast. We are at the Ukrainian Labor Temple. What I love is the way this space is used today. Last hour we were hearing more about the history, but also currently how the community connects. So here apparently lots of weddings still held, but weddings from people in the African community. They love coming down here. There's a big multicultural neighborhood here that we're sitting in the middle of in Winnipeg's North End. Also, some of the history, someone said that one of the people in Winnipeg that talks about the history saw Casablanca here. I love that. Like saw Casablanca here. Put that in your head and think about it. All right, it's 7:26 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 9:90 a.m. on the app and YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Appreciate you being with us here on CBC. It is time for morning sports, and Claude Faig, I believe, is in. Claude Faig, rather, in for Scott Regehr. Good morning, Claude.
I am in, Marcy, and good morning to you. Nice to be back.
Let's talk about the finals. They've been set now for the Canadian Olympic curling hopefuls.
Yeah, kind of a win-loss day for Manitoba, but the finals are now set at the Canadian Olympic Curling Trials being hosted in Halifax this week. On the women's side, Rachel Homan will face hometown favorite Christina Black for the right to advance to Milano Cortina. Now, Homan is vying for her third trip to the Winter Olympics. For Black, the week has been an emotional one, not just on the curling sheet, but also with the loss of hometown hero, curling legend, and former CBC sportscaster Colleen Jones. Now, on the men's side, Calgary's Brad Jacobs will face Matt Dunstone of Winnipeg. Dunstone beat Mike McEwen Saskatoon rink yesterday, 9-5.
It's awesome for the fans. I think it's great for media. As a player, I'll let you know in a couple days how I feel about it. But I think it creates how exciting baseball and hockey playoffs are. That's what this is starting to create, and I think you're going to see, I don't want to say harsher rivalries, but more intense rivalries created from this type of format. And I'd love to argue with anybody that's going to tell me that that's bad for the sport.
Now, Dunstone referring to the fact that for the first time at the trials, this will be a best-of-3 format to advance to the Olympics. And by the way, neither the men or women in this country have struck gold at a Winter Games since 2014 in Sochi.
The Jets look to fire up all engines this afternoon in Carolina, looking for those greasy goals.
Yeah, Marcy, Jets are back on the ice today along with 5 other Canadian teams. 3 straight losses have dropped the Jets in the 12th place in the Western Conference. And this afternoon they face off with the Carolina Hurricanes, who sit 3rd overall in the Eastern Conference. And for the foreseeable future, they'll have to make do without their stud goaltender Connor Hellebuck, who's not expected back till January. And for defenseman Dylan DeMello, the goal is not necessarily to give it 110%. He says, just keep it simple.
First and foremost, don't try to do more than what you do every night. And obviously, we've talked about 10% more, we've talked about giving more, but that doesn't mean you go outside of your foundation and what makes you successful. That's the biggest thing, is just taking ownership of your own game, being the best version of you. That usually blends into our overall game. So it's been a lot better than maybe the first 10 games. Just iron out some few details and structure and sort outs and things like that.
And puck drop from Raleigh is set for 4 p.m. Central.
And Vancouver Whitecaps on the cusp of vying for an MLS title.
Yeah, that's right. A Canadian soccer side is on the verge of challenging for a Major League Soccer championship, and that's a rare feat because the only Canadian team to ever do so was Toronto FC back in 2017. Now, the Vancouver Whitecaps, who had a strong regular season, are a win away from getting to that championship final. They need a win in San Diego tomorrow night in a one-game winner-take-all scenario. Now, a player who knows a thing or two about winning and pressure matches is German star Thomas Muller, who joined the Whitecaps this season. He, of course, plays for Germany and has a World Cup title, so easy to understand how he wants his side to approach tomorrow's match.
They should feel the pressure, but they should deal with it in the right way. It's not about getting not attracted from these kind of emotions. It's more about how can you use it. The good thing in such a reactive game like soccer is when the referee blows the whistle, you have not a lot of time to think about anything. So we just play and let's see how we can deal with it.
And match time tomorrow is 7 p.m. local time.
All right. Thanks, Claude.
Thank you, Marcy. Have a great day.
You too. That's Claude Faig with our Friday morning sports. Coming up as we continue to broadcast from the Ukrainian Labor Temple in Winnipeg's North End at Pritchard and McGregor, we're going to learn more about what's happening in the kitchen. We're getting close to the first seating for the pancakes, 8 o'clock for the light wild blueberry pancake breakfast. And we are going to hear who is in the kitchen. Corey's actually going to check it out. And that is because, as I've been mentioning, a local investment toward employment supports different organizations to give people employment experience. And today in the kitchen, there are some people from the Spence Neighborhood Association who are getting some things to put on their resumes. So stay tuned. That's after your news.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Megan Ketchison in Winnipeg. At 7:30, we have light snow and -7. Mainly cloudy today with flurries, a high of -5. The head of the union that represents Manitoba nurses says the healthcare system failed Genevieve Price. The 82-year-old woman died last weekend after a situation worsened over the course of 30 hours at 2 Winnipeg emergency departments. Darlene Jackson is the president of the Manitoba Nurses Union. She says it's alarming that Price fell through the cracks despite her daughter being a home care nurse.
Her daughter is a nurse who is well aware of our healthcare system and well aware of how to navigate our healthcare system. And even her daughter was having difficulty navigating the system and trying to expedite treatment. So that's frightening, because for someone who doesn't have a nurse to advocate for them, it's even more frightening.
Price's daughter, Michelle, issued a statement Thursday taking current and former governments to task for the state of health care. Manitoba's premier and opposition leader traded insults again at question period. They called each other clowns, racist, misogynist, criminals, fake feminists, and tofu eaters. CBC's Bartley Kivas reports.
We all need to calm down.
That's Speaker Tom Lindsay asking for calm during a Thursday question period so unruly, even he had to apologize. Lindsay said Swan River MLA Rick Wowchuk wasn't too clever for calling Premier Wabkanu Pinocchio when legislature rules forbid calling anyone a liar. Question period saw Canoe and PC leader Robbie Khan taunt each other. At one point, Canoe told Khan it's okay for Khan to cry because he's used to getting beaten inside the legislature and on the football field.
The only thing the member opposite has to offer is his claim to have played football for many, many years. But you know what? In spite of those many, I have exactly as many Grey Cups as he does.
Khan, in turn, brought up old charges against Canoe, including an episode decades ago when Canoe made racist comments and was charged with assaulting a taxi driver.
Does the Premier hate taxi drivers? Does he hate Punjabis? Or is it both?
Both parties said afterward the other was responsible for the tone inside the chamber. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The principal of St. Anne Collegiate has a warning for students after a teen was attacked and sent to hospital this week. The videos were taken of the incident and shared on social media. In it, the victim was confronted by a group of teens in front of the school. Initially, he sat on a planter, not engaging, but then one member of the group grabbed him and threw him to the ground and kicked him. He was released from hospital with minor injuries. St. Anne police say one student has been arrested. The principal sent a letter to parents saying it was not okay for people to be standing around and taking videos of what was happening. He says students need to look out for each other. In national news, Alberta's governing United Conservative Party is holding its annual meeting this weekend in Edmonton, and top of mind now and in the months and years to come is the energy agreement Premier Danielle Smith signed yesterday with the Prime Minister. Aaron Collins reports.
They want a better deal for this province.
Tim Hoven doesn't think members of his United Conservative Party will be impressed with the new energy deal between his province and Ottawa. The Alberta rancher doubts it will deliver on a pipeline, and Hoven thinks Danielle Smith will have a tough time selling it this weekend.
There's going to be about 10% very enthusiastic supporters who are going to love it. 20% of the people are going to be kind of on the fence, and 70% of the people are going to sit there with their arms folded and just look at it. They want more.
Despite some skepticism from members of her own party, political scientist Dwayne Bratt says the pipeline deal is a win for the Premier.
There's a long way between an MOU and an operational pipeline, but she has a deal in hand.
How this energy deal ages for Danielle Smith depends on when a pipeline emerges. The longer progress on a new line lingers, the more opposition to the plan and the Premier who delivered it could build. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Calgary.
And back to Winnipeg. That's the sound of another homeless encampment being torn down in Winnipeg. Bulldozers and city crews began removing tents, items, and debris from Mostyn Park yesterday. The move comes a little over a week after the new city rules came into effect. They prohibit encampments within 50 meters of schools, daycares, playgrounds, and more. The city previously said 15 people were living in the West Broadway encampment next to the Granite Curling Club. Recently, outreach teams have been working there to find homes for those people. And that's the CBC News from Winnipeg. You can always find more on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you what, here at the Ukrainian Labor Temple, getting ready for the light breakfast. The music's now on in the background. People are funneling in. CBC's community studio this morning is getting busy. Their first sitting for pancakes is at 8 o'clock, and then they're going to have another one later. This runs until 8 until 11. You can get tickets at the door. This is at Pritchard Avenue and McGregor, the Labor Temple, very historic in the heart of Winnipeg's north end here. And if you want to come down and join us, please do. We're going to hear in a moment who's cooking in the kitchen, because it has to do with community as well. It links back to organizations that LIGHT supports. LIGHT is LITE, Local Investment Toward Employment. And the Spence Neighborhood Association and some of their volunteers and young people are in the kitchen today. And Corey's going to give us that story in a moment. Right now, though, if you are heading over here, let's find out what the weather is like. I can just see it's still dark outside, Abby, through the big windows at the Labor Temple. Doesn't look like it's snowing. What's it like downtown?
Yeah, still light snow falling downtown here. You will notice it if you step outside. And that's the condition across most regions in the southern part of the province. While up north, we're feeling that deep freeze as you travel further towards to the lake and Churchill this morning. Winnipeg -7 at this time. Expect this a fluffy day to stay with us. It's going to push, that light northerly winds our way, and then we'll top out our highs near -5 today. For the Pembina Valley region, -8 at this time. Light snow also falling there. Good chance of flurries all through the morning. You warm up to about -7. Brandon is cloudy at this time, -14, but expect a mix of sun and clouds to warm things up to about -8 later. Dauphin -9 with light snow, warming up to -7. In Gimli, we're looking at -10. And in the surrounding areas, we're seeing -9, -7s. Mainly cloudy morning. A good chance of flurries also staying with you. You warm to -6 later. The powerful influence surrounding communities, we're looking at -9 and -12s, depending on where you are with light snow. That should clear, giving away to a mix of sun and clouds, and you just stay around -9 for the day. Thompson is cold at -12. Light snow falling. This chance of snow continues through the day. You get to just drop to -11 later, while in Churchill, light snow falling, and the wind chill makes it feel colder this morning. Your temperature tops out at -14 later. So across board, Marcy, it's more like a chilly Friday. Snowy conditions across most of the regions. Winnipeg, -7. Light snow still falling depending on where you are in the city.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Well, it is Black Friday, so watch it as it starts to get busy around shopping spaces and perhaps in places where you don't expect early in the morning, because often people will head out earlier. Otherwise, we don't actually have anything major to report in traffic. If you're seeing problems, call us. If you're heading out on the highways, just check first. We have had a lot of snow down in north and western Manitoba, so you're going to check at 511 before you go. And if you want to reach us and pass something along, we'll get it on the air. 788-3093 is where you can reach us. It is 22 minutes to 8 o'clock on your Friday morning on CBC. And all morning we've been talking about the Ukrainian Labor Temple and some of the history here at the hall at Pritchard and McGregor. But right now we want to take you into the kitchen, because the event that's happening here this morning is going to start at 8. And they have been flipping pancakes over there. As I mentioned, though, this is all about who is making the pancakes and the organization that they're with. Corey Funk has popped into the kitchen right now. Who are you with, Corey?
Yeah, I'm here with Alex Single. So he's one of the volunteers here who are going to be making 200 to 300 or so pancakes today. That's just for me. And then another 200 to 300 or so pancakes for everybody else. So Alex, how you doing?
I'm doing good today.
Have you ever made this many pancakes before?
I have at my school once. Yeah, a good amount. Yeah.
So you're here volunteering with the Spence Neighborhood Association. Why do you want to help out today?
I want to clarify one thing. I'm not volunteering. I am actually a youth crew member, but
okay. So you're working. You're on the clock today. Okay, that's good to know. So you're actually benefiting from some of these programs that are actually helping youth become employed. But what does that mean for you? How does that help you get a foothold in the job market?
So I started working. Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, sorry. There's lots going on in here. I don't want you to burn the pancakes. So if you got to flip. He's got to flip the pancakes, so I don't want to distract him too much here.
Good. I'm just waiting a bit for them to be done. Yeah. So I started working at Spence when I was like 16 or 15, but I quit around 2019, 2020, and I recently came back because I've been looking for more job experience, more hours,
And so how has, programs like this, helping out here, flipping pancakes, helped you kind of get a foothold? Because I actually understand you also have a job at KFC, right?
Yes. I currently work at KFC. I recently got hired like a month and a half ago. So that's been good. It is different though, working at fast food. Got moved again.
It's a busy, very tight kitchen in here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's been a new experience for sure. I've also been going to University of Winnipeg to study psychology. So,
and do you think you would have gotten a job at KFC if it weren't for programs like these?
I would say it's hard to say. I will say though that the experience does help a lot though, as like a jump start, because it helps you get familiar with working with others, working with people, knowing how to be productive as a team member. I think those are all really important aspects that help.
Right. Okay, well, I'll let you get to flipping here because there's someone else I want to chat with who's been doing this for about 12 years now. I'm actually here with Leslie Kwok. So what are you up to right now? Tell me a little bit what you're doing.
I'm making pancakes, blueberry pancakes for everyone.
I see a giant bag of blueberries here. How many eggs does this take? This must be like a few hundred.
Oh, for sure, a couple hundred. Yeah.
So you've been doing this for 12 years. You're with the Spence Neighborhood Association. Yeah. And part of the reason you're here is because of the work that your organization does to help youth in the area with employment. Yeah. So tell me a little about that programming that you guys do.
Okay, well, we have several different programs. We have the First Jobs for Youth program, the Young Parents Employment program, and the Youth Crew program. And these young people here today are Youth Crew workers. So Youth Crew is a casual work experience where youth can gain all kinds of experience in yard work, catering, community event assist, painting, sanding, whatever jobs we can get our hands on. And we have paying clients all over the city.
Wow. And what have you noticed in terms of the challenges youth have had? Because you've been doing this for a long time. You've seen a lot of youth enter the workforce. What are the challenges now for youth compared to, say, 12 years ago?
Well, there's a low employment rate for youth all over the city, especially in the inner city. And you have other barriers like getting to work, transportation, and being hired on in a community where they don't know who you are, and a lot of other barriers.
Yeah, a lot of times we say it's not what you know, it's who you know, right? And how much does that, how much does that play into it? How much does this help people get to know people who will hire them?
Well, it helps give them the foundational skill set that they need to get out there and the confidence to get out there and look for other work. Like Alex went out there and he found his own job. And he's not the only one. Other youth that work with me, they find their own work. And if they have any difficulties or whatever, they know they can come back and work with us again and build their confidence back up and then get back out there.
It's a bit of a labor safety net, if you will.
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
Is there any stories that stand out to you over the years, of people who have, maybe didn't have much experience, but then they came to you and then now they're thriving in the workforce?
I guess the biggest story is that over the years, we've had many of our youth apply for jobs with the city of Winnipeg through a partnership with the city. And some of the youth who applied there, I've been with Spence for 18 years. Some of them who applied there 16, 17 years ago are still there and they have seniority and it's life-changing. And over the years, I've probably had 50 of my youth at least get in with the city of Winnipeg. And that's huge. It's life-changing, not just for them, but their families. And so in our community center at the Magnus Eliason Rec Center, you're going to see youth working there who grew up there, and that's changing the landscape of the community. They know that they can look up, other youth can look up to them, and these are their role models and their mentors, and it's exciting for them because they know they can do that too.
What's it like for you to see that over those 18 years?
Oh, it's amazing. I always said to my coworkers, I need a bell that I can ring every time I hear some great news about one of my youth, They're just awesome. They're graduating. They're going to university, colleges. They're getting their own jobs. They're coming back to tell me their success stories. They're awesome. They really do want to work. They're focused and they want to work and they want to have a good life like we all do.
The kids are all right.
They're awesome. They're what do this job. They're what keep me going,
Yeah, great job. Well, Leslie, thanks for the chat, and I'll let you get back to making all these pancakes. I know we're just getting started here. I know you got lots to do. Back to you there, Marcy. Just about 10 meters away or so from me here. I'm just in the kitchen here, and we'll throw it back to you.
Yeah, it was fantastic hearing the impact of that. And I love that she's got such a long history with Spence, that she's watching. What a great story about those young people moving on to the city of Winnipeg, and, you know, and the impact it has also when you're working in a neighborhood you grew up in, and how that impacts reaching other young people today. Fabulous. It is not just about flipping and pancakes, as you're hearing from Corey in the kitchen here. It is about feeding the futures of young people in our community as they try to get a leg up on the career ladder. And not just young people. Coming up at this year's light breakfast after 8 o'clock. Last year here, there was a partnership announced to help people find work in the construction industry. We're going to get an update on that after 8 o'clock. Our community studio is the local investment toward employment light breakfast. We're at the Ukrainian Labor Temple at Pritchard and McGregor. Time right now is 7:46. Light snow falling. It's -7 in Winnipeg. We're going to be right around -5 for the day. Well, there's going to be some music on stage here later, some entertainment from Folklorama, but we want to play you a bit of music that's different than that, because later this morning on CBC, Chantal Kreviasek is going to be on cue. Have you heard her latest album? It's called In My Own Voice. This is her voice on songs she's written for some of the biggest artists. This is her cover of Drake's Over My Dead Body.
How I'm feeling, it doesn't matter, 'cause you know I'm okay. And still I ask myself, why do you worry when no, you know I'm the same? Oh, I know you don't love me, baby, that's right, to take you away from me, only over my dead body. Where I'm going, it doesn't matter, 'cause you know I won't stay. And still I ask myself, why such a hurry when no, some things never change. And oh, I know you don't love.
We're just giving you a bit of a tease of Chantal Kreviasek. If you want to hear her speaking and singing, you're going to listen to Q today. She's on the radio later talking about this album. This is her cover of Drake's Over My Dead Body. The whole album is covers of tunes she wrote for other artists. It's called In My Own Voice, and you can check it out on 89.3 FM later this morning. Coming up after 8 on the show, doctors and senators in Canada are concerned about sports betting ads only showing the upside of gaming and gambling to young people. An insolvency partner agrees. He says his clientele is getting younger and many have gambling debt. We'll have that interview coming up after 8. But right now, our ongoing coverage of something that happened in our healthcare system in Manitoba this week continues. An 82-year-old woman's death is being investigated as a critical incident after she waited hours for care. According to her daughter, Michelle Price, who's a nurse, her mother, Genevieve Price, went to a minor injury clinic last week after noticing a swollen hand. As you may have been hearing in our news report, she was put on medication, but her condition got worse. Clinic staff said she required more intensive care. So Genevieve was then sent to the Grace Hospital. That's where her daughter says her mom waited for hours on a stretcher in the hallway before being transferred again to St. Boniface Hospital, or transferred rather to St. Boniface Hospital. That is where she later died. Her daughter wrote in a post on Facebook, quote, "My mom deserved better. We deserve better. We need better. The system is broken, and so is my heart," unquote. CBC has now learned that Michelle Price, who is, as I mentioned, a nurse herself, had to make the tough decision to go to work, to leave her mom at the hospital. She says she thought her mother was in good hands. She told CBC's Felicia Adam that she realized that if she didn't go reach her home care clients, she was worried about who would. Darlene Jackson is the head of the Manitoba Nurses Union. Here's what she said to Felicia.
I think it was preventable. if she had been able to have treatment sooner. I think it was preventable. And, it's almost a little alarming that, her daughter is a nurse who is well aware of our healthcare system and well aware of how to navigate our healthcare system. And even her daughter was having difficulty navigating the system and trying to expedite treatment. So that's frightening, because if for someone who doesn't have a nurse to advocate for them, it's even more frightening.
Meantime, Health Minister Zoma Asaguera says the critical incident review will be specific to mistakes made in the case. They say the secondary investigation will look more broadly at whether policy or structural changes are needed.
This is a tragedy. It's a devastating loss for a family that, by all accounts, did everything they could to get their mom the care that she needed when she needed it. And, our condolences are with the family during this time. And having spoken to the family, I express my gratitude for sharing their story. And, this is a situation we never want to see happen to any Manitoba family, to any Manitoban. It's unacceptable. And right now it's about ensuring that every step is taken so that the family has the answers they deserve. And we understand how we can prevent this from happening again.
We are still awaiting, by the way, more details about exactly specifically what happened medically with Genevieve Price. But as you can imagine, all of this is much under investigation, and then we will report what we can when we can. We do know she, though, was 82 years old. To help us understand the larger challenges that older adults face when accessing emergency services, Laura Tamlin-Watts, CEO of CanAge, is with us via Zoom. That's Canada's National Seniors Advocacy Organization. Good morning.
Good morning.
And an apology, I'm in a live event, and so if you hear music in the background and such, obviously, it won't affect the listeners, but you'll hear it behind my questions here. What concerns you most from a seniors care perspective when you hear stories like this?
There are three big parts to this tragedy, which probably was preventable. The first is this unwritten rule about the priorities of older people. Now, I say unwritten. In some cases, it is actually written down. We don't think about age and triage as specifically. Now, during the pandemic, I remember having a conversation with an 82-year-old, and I said, if you get COVID, the chances of you getting care are really low because there is a specific triage age, and it's usually around 65 or 70. And so part of what we need to understand is, was triage part of this? Was there an age-based triage? The second part we need to understand is who was monitoring her, because this is the kind of thing where we know that we're really incredibly short of staff. That is an ongoing problem, but we're not going to get new staff right away. So could technology and could basic technological monitoring, even things like Apple Watches and heart monitors and so on, could basic technology have played a role so that we had a good understanding for our few human resources that we do have, that they would have been alerted to the fact that she was going downhill? The third piece, it's especially horrible that the woman who was her supporter is herself a home care nurse, but her choice is not an unusual choice for many people. We think of the sandwich generation. It's more like a club sandwich generation where you have to decide, who am I going to take care of? Because the system can't take care of older people as it is. So she had to go take care of other older people or other people with vulnerabilities. But it's the same thing. Who's going to pick up my kids? Who's going to take care of my spouse who needs support? And that caregiving conversation is one we haven't really had yet.
Because you work with, seniors and talking around healthcare advocacy across the country, how common is it to hear about older adults waiting for hours on hallways or on stretchers?
This is the conversation. In fact, it's the expectation. Increasingly, we're seeing older adults say, well, I'm not even going to bother going to hospital, or not even going to bother going to the emergency room in particular, because they won't see me. I won't get seen. And people are trying to take other types of shortcuts. Who do I know that was a retired nurse that may live by me? Or, what if I look it up on the internet? That's exactly what we don't want to have happen. What we need to do is start thinking about triaging, not based on age, but based on who can be checked out quickly and diverted quickly. If there are many people, for instance, who have a hypertension issue or a cardiac issue, can you then move them into an area where everybody is being monitored for that issue, in the same way that we already do for things like breaks? If you've broken a leg, you can be moved very quickly into the bone area. So there's more that we can do with pathways and support. And I think that there's a lot more that we can do with making sure that people who are going to the ER feel like they're going to be seen in an appropriate way.
Just outside of age, I mean, we had a man, Brian Sinclair, died decades ago. I know it was a different hospital, different situation. I realize there's things that were different, but what's the same is hours and hours of waiting and someone dying in our ER. I wonder, at the top of the list, when you think of systemic problems that should be examined in our healthcare system, which I know is under all kinds of stress, I get it, but what should they examine to prevent situations from this happening again? What do you hope is in this critical incident review?
As our population is aging, we need to confront that ageism is, in fact, the single most prevalent discrimination, so found StatsCan and the World Health Organization. And yet we don't look at our system in terms of health and social care with that ageism lens in the way that we may have looked for other forms of discrimination, including the Sinclair case as a good example of it. We need to challenge ourselves by saying, are we giving a different level of care? In fact, a reduced level of care and reduced priorities for people who are older. And when we came up with those basic ideas around triage, what was the average age of death then? So as an example, when we created our Canada healthcare system, the average age of death was in the mid-70s, and every single one of the top 10 reasons people died then is now a chronic condition. So we need to really do a systemic evaluation of ageism in our system.
Laura Tamlin-Watts, thank you very much for your perspective and time.
Thank you.
That is the CEO of CanAge, Canada's National Seniors Advocacy Organization. If you want to read more on the story, please go to cbc.ca/Manitoba. Also, a small correction, an earlier version of this story on our website said that Genevieve Price waited 30 hours for care. In fact, hospital staff gave her an IV and took a blood test. And as we've been reporting now, she was in one space and then was moved to another place as well. So if you want to read more, and if you want to weigh in, 788-3205. What do you hope this investigation uncovers about the system overall to make it safer for you and your family? Let's go to Megan Ketchison. She's here with headlines.
Well, a violent attack at a St. Anne Collegiate sent a student to hospital this week. St. Anne police say another student has been arrested. The incident was caught on video and shared, prompting a warning by the school's principal. And both sides are claiming victory in the latest round of a legal fight over moose hunting in Manitoba. We'll find out why coming up at 8:30.
Thanks very much, Megan. Getting into weather here, it's snowing lightly in Winnipeg, just that skiff across this roadways in the city at least. And currently in the city, it is -7. That's the warm spot across the province. Pardon me, I was off mic there. -7 warm spot across the province. -5 is going to be our high. Chance of snow continuing in Winnipeg. The drive's been pretty good, though. Call us if you have any problems on the highways or on your commute, 788-3093. I'm going on stage to MC the Light Breakfast here at the Ukrainian Labor Temple, which means Corey Funk is going to pick up hosting after 8. What's coming up, Corey?
Well, an insolvency partner says the number of people coming to him with gambling debt is not only growing, but they're also younger than he's ever seen before, and many deny having an addiction at all. With all this talk about sports betting and the impact it's having on Canadians, we're going to have him on after 8 to talk about what he's seeing. Stay tuned. This is Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk. We're live here at the Ukrainian Labor Temple. We're going to talk about that and also talk about how folks are helping youth find employment here in the community in the construction industry. That's all coming up after World Report. I'm Corey Funk. This is Information Radio. Stay tuned.
On cue. Chantal Kravietzik is one of Canada's most prolific singer-songwriters. She's written songs for some of the biggest artists in the world, everyone from Gwen Stefani to Kendrick Lamar. She'll be here to talk about falling in love with music, her career, and her new record of covers of her own songs.
I just wanna feel this moment.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland. And on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
The journalist Anna Mailer-Paperny has dealt with treatment-resistant depression for decades. Now she has had a device implanted in her brain as part of a clinical trial to see if electrical stimulation will rewire that brain. Anna Mailer-Paperny coming up on The Current.
This is World Report.
Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Prime Minister Mark Carney and Alberta Premier Danielle Smith are extolling the benefits of their new energy understanding. But even as they talk about a stronger, more resilient and more sustainable Canada, there are questions about whether this could be a risky move for Carney and his governing Liberals. Let's bring in Janice McGregor from our Parliamentary Bureau. Janice, a lot of concerns being raised in BC.
British Columbia Premier David Eby's biggest fear here is that with all the focus on this agreement with Alberta, resource projects that are much farther along and supposed to have been prioritized in his province could now be at risk. Because the First Nations partners he needs for those are now worried the federal government's going to throw their concerns under the bus to get this pipeline built. Natural Resources Minister Tim Hodgson out there trying to convince skeptics, don't worry, I got this.
There will be three-way conversations about any route and any pipeline, consultation consistent with free, prior, informed consent with First Nations. So I think we should all take a breath.
Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, too, yesterday said her government works well with First Nations, trying to reassure everyone that no route has been finalized yet. And the Indigenous consultations that start now, she said, are going to influence what territory a new pipeline crosses and the port where it ends.
So, Janice, does all of this pose a risk to the Liberal Party's reputation on climate policies?
Well, Greenpeace yesterday was pointing out that Alberta is responsible for nearly half of all the carbon emissions that come from generating electricity in this country. But now this agreement would let Alberta off the hook for the federal clean electricity regulations. Environment Minister Julie Dabruzen was sent out on defense to convince reporters that Canada's still going to somehow be on track to keep its climate commitments.
The 2030 and 2035 targets remain Canada's targets. We're determined to continue the work to get there.
Canada's emissions reductions plan, that was at the heart of what Stephen Guilbeault was trying to achieve in Cabinet. Yesterday's reversal proved too much. But in the Prime Minister's response to his resignation, Mark Carney said that a climate strategy based solely on regulations and prohibitions won't work because it doesn't align enough interests. Basically, put another way, it's alienating the people they need on board.
Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
Some good economic news for you this morning. The Canadian economy grew in the third quarter of this year. Statistics Canada has just released the latest GDP numbers, and they show a rise of 0.6% July through to September. While that means the economy is not in recession, there is more to it than that. The CBC senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong explains.
It is clear and obvious that avoiding a technical recession is a good thing, but that shouldn't take away from the other clear and obvious fact here that the Canadian economy is weak, has been teetering on the edge of a recession for most of this year, and there's not a lot of indication that that weakness is going away. Indeed, the advance estimate by Statistics Canada for October shows the economy likely contracted again last month. There are some interesting elements in this report, though. We saw a stabilization of exports, a sign the economy may be adjusting to the tariffs. We saw a giant surge in military spending as government plans for new weapons systems begin to roll out. But again, the defining characteristic of the Canadian economy is weakness, and that is expected to continue until well into next year. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
The Israeli military says it is investigating the killing of 2 Palestinian men in the West Bank. Videos show the men being shot by Israeli forces yesterday. It appears they were killed while trying to surrender. Crystal Gomansing reports.
Such brutal use of force is nothing short of abhorrent.
Jeremy Lauren, spokesperson for the Office of the UN High Commission for Human Rights, is demanding an independent, prompt and effective investigation into the killing of 2 Palestinians in Jenin. The fatal incident by Israeli security forces in the occupied West Bank Thursday was caught on video from a distance. 2 men can be seen crouching and moving slowly out of a building with their arms raised towards a group of armed Israeli officers. The men lift their shirts, presumably to show they're not concealing weapons. They're kicked as they surrender to Israeli border officers. The men are sent back to the building, then shot and killed.
There's rule of law, there's due process, ways in which you handle cases. The solution is not to pull a gun and shoot.
The Israeli military and Israeli police issued a joint statement yesterday acknowledging the shootings and announcing an investigation. No reason for the shootings was given. Israel's far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir posted on social media that the officers have his backing, adding terrorists must die. A spokesperson for B'Tselem, the Israeli Information Center for Human Rights in the Occupied Territories, told CBC it has no confidence in any investigation, that Israelis act with impunity granted by the government and its legal systems. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
The World Health Organization is warning measles is often the first disease to resurge when vaccination rates drop. And in parts of the world where war, displacement, or misinformation are rampant, that's exactly what's happening. It's all detailed in the WHO's Measles Control Report Card. As Jennifer Yoon tells us, Canada, too, is a hotspot.
At a medical complex in Gaza City, UNICEF nurses and doctors are catching children up on their measles vaccines. Childhood immunization coverage in the region dropped almost 30% since the start of the war. We didn't know where to go for the shots, says one woman whose grandson got behind on his vaccines during the war. Millions of children in conflict zones are underprotected against measles, according to a new report from the World Health Organization. It's one of the reasons why cases are surging around the world, with an estimated 11 million infections last year. Dr. Kate O'Brien heads the World Health Organization's Department of Immunizations.
Unfortunately, for much of the world, the alarms are ringing. Measles cases are surging, outbreaks are increasing, and too many children remain unprotected.
Most people in low and middle income countries don't really hesitate to receive these vaccines.
But social unrest isn't the only factor driving the surge, says Dr. Brian Ward, an infectious diseases microbiologist at McGill University Health Center. Measles cases are also increasing in countries with stable, robust health systems, like Canada, which officially lost its measles elimination status this year.
In Canada, I think, and other wealthier countries, I think we really need to find a way to communicate the risks.
That will involve building trust with under-vaccinated communities and fighting misinformation, Ward says. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
The commercial lobster season officially opened this week in southwest Nova Scotia. It's an area that has also been experiencing a rash of violence. Locals and some commercial fishers blame a black market for lobster and allege it's caused by First Nations fishing out of season and selling their catch illegally. But an investigation by the Fifth Estate finds little evidence to back up those claims. Fifth Estate co-host Stephen D'Souza reports.
How much cash are you talking about here?
50,000, 100,000.
Like you got $50,000?
Yep.
You're just driving around $50,000 in cash?
Yep.
That's Zachary Thibault talking about his time as an unlicensed lobster broker, buying lobsters for cash, sales that would go unreported, a black market.
You've been charged with a bunch of different crimes related to the lobster fishery.
Yeah.
Extortion, threats,
Yeah.
harassment.
We'll see how that plays out in court.
Thibault spoke with CBC Nova Scotia's Richard Cuthbertson because he wants to clear the air, not just about the allegations against him, but about claims around the lobster black market. Some locals and commercial fishermen blame First Nations fishers here, saying they're fishing and selling their catch illegally, fueling the black market and the crime that comes with it. But Thibault says that's not true.
All the business that you did, your unreported sales, how much of that was Indigenous, how much non-Indigenous?
10% Indigenous. Yeah, 10-15%.
And the rest is non-Indigenous?
Yeah.
He says cash sales are a tax dodge and a widespread practice.
I'm sick of it. There's nothing to do with conservation. It's total greed.
The RCMP did crack down on crime in the area, arresting 3 men they say were responsible for the majority of the violence. Much of it, police allege, tied to the drug trade, not the lobster fishery. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, Toronto.
And that Fifth Estate investigation airs tonight at 9 p.m. on CBC Television and GEM, or you can watch it anytime on YouTube. Well, that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. We are live on location here at the Ukrainian Labor Temple at the corner of McGregor and Pritchard. It's the light breakfast, and we are here raising money for food hampers for the community. There are people out right now. They're just about to serve up some pancakes. Marcy is up on stage. She's emceeing the event, and I'm Corey Funk. I am here hosting this last half hour today on Information Radio. And this half hour, we are going to be talking about gambling. An insolvency partner says the number of people coming to him with gambling debt is not only growing, but they're also younger than he's ever seen before. And with sports betting becoming more popular, we're going to talk about what he's seeing and what he thinks needs to change. Also this half hour, at this event last year, a partnership was announced to help people find work in the construction industry. So we're going to get an update on that. Stay tuned. But first, though, right now at 8:11, let's check in with Megan Ketchison with a look at news headlines.
Well, the head of the union that represents Manitoba nurses says the healthcare system failed Genevieve Price. The 82-year-old woman died last weekend after her situation worsened over the course of 30 hours at 2 Winnipeg emergency departments. The MNU president says it's alarming that Price fell through the cracks despite her daughter being a home care nurse. And Manitoba's premier and opposition leader traded insults again. In question period, it got so unruly, the speaker had to apologize. And I'll have more coming up at 8:30.
Thank you very much, Megan.
You're welcome.
That is Megan Ketchison at the CBC News desk. And Abby Adiyemi is in with a look at the weather. Hey, Abby.
Corey, I noticed you changed locations.
Yes. so we're at the Ukrainian Labor Temple, and all morning we've actually been out in the main hall. There's a beautiful view of all the renos, and it looks gorgeous in here. But I actually blame Marcy, so she's emceeing, and then now things are happening out there. It's quite loud. It doesn't make for great radio background
You
noise.
have to move backstage.
I've jammed the table. If you're watching on Zoom on YouTube right now, I'm literally in this little skinny hallway beside an old piano, managing to make a little tiny studio back here. I'm going to squeeze the guests in here after that, so that's going to be fun to see how we pull that off. But yes, we are here, and it is a pretty snowy day out there.
Well,
isn't it, Abby?
no windows for you, Corey, but outside my window here, it's snowy outside. We're seeing cloudy conditions in some areas where a lot of snow dominating the southern part of the province. Winnipeg, it's still chilly. We're stuck at -7 all morning. That's where we've been. We only warm up to -5 later. Similar conditions we're seeing across board, except for Brandon, where you're waking up to that frigid -14 degrees this morning, and the wind chill makes it feel around -22. Up north, we're seeing -10s and -13s all the way, tracking it towards Churchill to the lake, still around -16 this morning. Clouds return later tonight across board, and then we'll see temperatures drop to about -10. But right now, Winnipeg, we are at -7 rather.
Thank you very much, Abby. As for the commute, it's actually been pretty quiet overall. There might be some poor visibility in some spots with that blowing snow. Not ideal conditions on those highways. But if you do see something, you can give us a call on the CBC commuter line. We'll let folks know what you're seeing out there. That number to call, 204-788-3093. Well, as you may have heard on the show this week, doctors and senators in Canada want to restrict sports betting ads because they're worried young people are being set up for a future of problem gambling. Yesterday, CBC's Marcy Marcusa spoke with Andrew Kim, an assistant professor in the Department of Psychology at Toronto Metropolitan University. He's also a Tier 2 Canada Research Chair in Addictions and Mental Health. He detailed who is being targeted by those ads.
They're young men, highly educated, disposable income that drink alcohol and maybe impulsive. And that's the advertisement, the content, that's who they're geared towards. The issue is sometimes is that, the advertisements make sports betting look like so much fun, easy way to make money, and it's targeting people that may be a bit more vulnerable, right? So young adults who may not have their brains fully developed can make appropriate decisions. They really show the upsides of gambling without any of the downside.
That was Andrew Kim, Tier 2 Canada Research Chair in Addictions and Mental Health. The downsides of gambling is something our next guest is well familiar with. Joshua Harris is a licensed insolvency trustee at Harris and Partners Incorporated. He says the number of people coming to him with gambling debt is not only growing, but he says his clients are getting younger. He joins us now from Toronto. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So what did you think about the clip we just heard there? Does the target demographic for sports betting align with some of your clients?
Absolutely. I mean, in the past, gambling was directly related to casinos, and it was a very obvious thing. I think what we're seeing now is a lot less people recognizing addiction and issues with gambling. It's just an app on your phone or on your computer, and it's targeting young men, like they said. And sports. It looks fun. I don't remember growing up seeing casino ads everywhere, but you can't get away from these online gambling ads.
So, what about sports gambling in particular? Like you said, your clients, are getting younger. How much can you attribute that to sports betting in particular?
I would say it's entirely attributed to the sports betting. And one of the main things with it is the recognition of the issue itself. It's so much easier to recognize you have a problem when you're actually holding chips in your hand at a casino, like I mentioned. But when it's just related to an app, what we're seeing is people aren't even recognizing that that's the cause of their debt issues or their insolvency.
And you said, as we mentioned earlier, that many of them are getting younger. Why do you think they are getting younger? Is it just because of just the ads, or what do you think it is?
I think it's the ads that are really targeting younger people. They're in when you're watching the sports games. It's every commercial break you're seeing multiple gambling ads. And older folks are just more comfortable going to an actual casino or playing a slot machine or something like that. While as younger people, they just download an app. They trust these things and they get right in there, and they drink more and get more excited about these games, and they don't realize how bad this can really get.
Mm-hmm. What kind of stories are you hearing from clients about how they got so deeply into debt? What's kind of the narratives overall that you're hearing?
In general, we're tying things mostly to the cost of living crisis in Canada. So we're not hearing too many more stories than usual about gambling. The trend is more that it's a percentage of the debt that is related to online gambling and things like that. So we'll have clients where 10% is related to gambling, and they don't even see that as an issue, where it really is. I mean, that's a lot. It can be a lot of debt, and it can be a big problem in their lifestyle.
So you're saying actually gambling debt is actually becoming a little bit more normalized amongst people, just like, I owe a whole bunch, but it just is what it is.
Totally, and they're not recognizing it as an issue. Like I mentioned, in the past, because you had to physically go somewhere or participate in something that was more active, people were recognizing that it was a real issue. They were getting help, self-excluding. Their family and friends were more aware of what was going on. Now, you might not even know, but your partner or your friend might be deeply embedded in these apps, and it just looks like they're scrolling Instagram or something, and it's really hard to recognize for themselves and for their peers.
I imagine, obviously, your job is to help people with debt. You're not like a emotional counselor, but I imagine, have you noticed when people come to you to talk about these things, are they telling you for the first time that something that maybe their family members might not even know that they've been holding inside, or how does that work?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we wear, as licensed insolvency trustees, we wear a lot of hats, and one of them is very much psychological and emotional related, and not just gambling, but all the time we hear things for the first time that are private. And me personally, I like to encourage people to be honest with their family and their friends, because support from your community is more important than anything else.
So obviously you're advising people how to get their debt down, but is that what you say for people to get out of it, to actually tell people, get people to take that step to tell family and friends as well? Is that what you also advise them?
For sure. So there's a couple of steps that are involved, and the insolvency is only a small portion of that. Being honest with themselves, being honest with their peers, friends and family, and of course doing things like self-exclusion, which is much harder on these apps than it was at a casino. But getting the help they need, going to Gamblers Anonymous and things like that are a huge part of what we tell people.
And if you're maybe, do you think you're just seeing the tip of the iceberg? Do you think there's based on what you're seeing, these are the people who have taken the time to come and see you. They've recognized there's a problem, but for every person you see, how many people do you think there are that are just still suffering or struggling in silence with gambling addiction?
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's the tip of the iceberg. I mean, these apps haven't been around that long, and they're growing rapidly. I see amongst my coworkers and my peers, people gambling on things that weren't even able to gamble on before, like elections and weird little sports bets that just weren't available before. And they're encouraging their friends to do it. It's almost like the vaping craze. It's spreading like wildfire. And it does take time for that to come back to us as trustees. Just like mass layoffs and things like COVID, we don't see the effects right away in the insolvency industry. There is a delay in time, and you're absolutely right. It's the tip of the iceberg.
And like you said, so part of the way you measure the severity of this is actually the percentage of their total debt. You said, it's so what are we talking about? How serious or so is a percentage that what's the mark where you're like, this is pretty serious, the percentage wise?
Yeah, for sure. So in a bankruptcy filing, like a traditional bankruptcy, if gambling was the major cause of the reason for filing the insolvency, if there's an addiction there, we actually have to report that to the court, and there is a discharge hearing in front of a judge that gets to decide what the repercussions are. Usually you have to have applied for Gamblers Anonymous or gotten some sort of help, self-exclusion, and you have to be on the road to recovery to get out of the insolvency. So sort of that threshold is a little bit subjective, and it does put us in a bit of a hot seat to decide, is this the actual cause? Is this an actual addiction issue? And certainly, if it's 2, 3, 5, even 10%, I'm not gonna, say that's the case, but it's mostly about the way that it gets presented by the person themselves, or through the discovery process, we discover that it is a much bigger issue than they thought it was. Because, like we talked about before, getting help is not just about the financial part. And we do wear all kinds of hats in the office.
And it's kind of maybe hard as a listener to wrap your head around a percentage, but what could that sometimes translate to in terms of amount of money that people owe? What have you heard in terms of the amount? Are we talking about tens of thousands, or what does that often look like? What can that look like? What's some examples that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really hard question to answer because a total debt load can be different for everybody based on their economic or family situation. We see people with debts as little as $6,000 and upwards of millions of dollars. And we've seen gambling debts in the past, often casino related, that will go into the hundreds of thousands. With these apps, they're not really letting people get that deep into debt. But the problem is, because you can use your credit cards on a lot of these apps and your debit card and things like that, it's not you're not sort of borrowing money from the house, so it can be a little bit different. But yeah, we're seeing tens of thousands, absolutely.
As you mentioned before, this is something a lot of people have been kind of silently suffering with, but now people are starting to talk about it as we kind of start to notice the repercussions. Do you think this will get worse before it gets better, or do you think now that people are talking about it more, have more conversations, maybe we'll be able to nip this in the bud?
I'm hoping we can nip it in the bud, but historically speaking, just like I mentioned, the vaping, call it epidemic, it's really hard to stop things like this. And I know, at the beginning of this conversation, we talked about advertising, and that is the biggest issue. You're not seeing advertising for cigarettes or vaping products and things like that. We need to stop this advertising. We need to make this harder to access, and it's our government that gets to control these things. So I'm hoping we can nip it in the bud, but I don't see that happening anytime soon.
If there's someone listening, maybe it started off as they bet $1 or $2 on a game, and then it kind of slowly spiraled, and now maybe that debt looks more like a few $1,000s from gambling. Maybe they haven't told their family. What's your advice to them?
Yeah, great question. So there are tons of free resources, and it doesn't have to be a licensed insolvency trustee. If you're not in that much debt, you're more than welcome to call us and we can have a chat. But there are tons of free resources, like Gamblers Anonymous or online forums where you can talk to other people that have been through these issues. And what's important is to recognize that the house always wins, and you're not going to recover that money. Even if you win big once, you're going to end up losing more in the long run. Otherwise, these companies wouldn't exist. It's okay to keep it private if that's what you want to do, but go out there and seek free assistance, because there's lots of free assistance out there. And step one is stopping the gambling. Step two is getting the help you need. And then we can go from there.
Well, Joshua, thank you for your time and all the best. We'll have to touch base maybe in a year or so just to see how things have changed for you.
Thanks so much. Looking forward to it.
That's Joshua Harris. He's a partner and licensed insolvency trustee at Harris and Partners Incorporated in Toronto.
This winter, help make the season kind in support of Harvest Manitoba. All it takes is one can of food, $1, or even 1 hour of your time. Your generosity will help those in need and bring us closer together as Manitobans. Join us as we donate a day of programming in support of Harvest Manitoba December 5th. Visit cbc.ca/kindmb for more.
Well, that is just one initiative that CBC will be taking on next week to address the big issue of hunger and, also employment issues as well in our province. And also, we're here today live at the Light Breakfast. It's here at the Ukrainian Labor Temple, right in the heart of the north end of the corner of McGregor and Pritchard. Lots of people coming in the door. I can see it here. I'm kind of squeezed in a hallway because it's pretty noisy out there right now. But lots of people coming in, enjoying some lovely blueberry pancakes, helping raise money to help people find employment, but also to raise money for food hampers as well in the community. And actually, we have someone here today who's going to be talking a little bit about that effort to find employment in the community. So just to start, just want you to think a little bit about this for a second. So what do you do if a prospective employer asks for your related work experience and your life hasn't allowed you to get onto the employment ladder? Knowing that can be an issue. And last year at this event, an organization called Scoden, which Staffing Solutions, partnered with Build to try and make some matches. But BUILD stands for Building Urban Industries for Local Development. They're an Indigenous social enterprise and nonprofit contractor. And longtime Executive Director Sean Hogan is here with us now to give us an update. Good morning to you there, Sean.
Good morning, Corey.
Welcome to the back hallway here. Thanks for squeezing in with me.
I love it here.
So how long has BUILD been around for now? Tell us a little bit about
We are 19 years old, so I think that we can have a beer in Saskatchewan now.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And just remind us a little bit about what you do.
So Build is we're a training program, social enterprise. A social enterprise is a business that takes like at least half of their profits and invests it towards a social mission. So we hire about 50, 60 people a year who would face barriers to employment, people who've oftentimes never had a job or coming out of the criminal justice system, or single moms trying to reunite with their kids out of the CFS system. We train them. We put them through 6 weeks of paid training, and we also employ them. We do about, I think we're running about 15, 16 renovation crews right now, and we do between 350 and 500 affordable housing renovations per year, trying to address the housing shortage in Manitoba.
Oh, wow. So tell me a little about this last year. Tell me about maybe some of the success stories you have that come to mind for you.
Well, it's there were some pretty good success stories this past year. If I was going to talk about numbers, about 68% of all the trainees that we trained exited straight into employment.
How many employees is that like altogether? Would you say number?
It's around 40.
Wow.
There's about 9 kids came out of the care of CFS and went back with their families through the stabilization of that comes with good long-term supportive employment.
So you've been helping people get into the workforce for a long time. What are you noticing about in this past year or so, or kind of the post-pandemic era we're in, about the specific challenges of this time that we're facing in terms of finding employment for people?
I don't want to get into like Stats Canada data or anything like that, but I will say that last week we had an open call for jobs. We were going to hire 4 people last week. I turned about 60 people away in one day.
That must be tough.
Those are really heartbreaking days, and that is not uncommon. That happens all the time, and we do that on about every 7 weeks. We have an open call for jobs, and it's real hard because the folks that are coming to the door, they oftentimes have been locked out of the labor market, but they do want to work. And that's the message, is that people want to work. And in fact, that feeling that we get from those big rejection days, I shouldn't really contextualize it that way, but that's what it feels like, is why we started Skoden.
Wow. And in the last minute here, if you want to get involved with Skoden, I know I was trying to get more details of what Skoden was, but we were short on time here. In the last 10, 20 seconds, if you're giving a quick pitch, how can people get involved?
Skoden is you know what, actually do business with Skoden. That is the number one thing. If you're looking for temporary labor and you would like to do it in a non-toxic, non-predatory way that supports participants, gives them a living wage, has no buyouts on the back end, that you could transition them straight into long-term employment, Skoden is the way to do it. It's very easy. Come to our website, skodenstaffing.ca, and sign up as a customer. Or if you would like a job, you can onboard yourself there as well.
That is Skoden. If people are
that is exactly right.
Oh, well, Sean, thanks for your time. Thanks for coming back in the hallway back here with me.
Thank you kindly.
That is Sean Hogan. He is the executive director of Build, also known as Building Urban Industries for Local Development. We're live here at the light breakfast here at the Ukrainian Labor Temple. But right now, it's time for your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Megan Ketchison in Winnipeg. At 8:31, we have some light snow and -7. Mainly cloudy with flurries today and a high of -5. The head of the union that represents Manitoba nurses says the system failed the family of a woman who died last weekend. 82-year-old Genevieve Price died after what started as a swollen hand and then worsened over the course of 30 hours at 2 Winnipeg emergency departments. Darlene Jackson is the president of the Manitoba Nurses Union. She says Price's daughter Michelle is a home care nurse who waited 10 hours with her mother at the Grace Hospital ER. She made a decision to go the next morning to go to work because she left her mother in the hands of a system she trusted.
She said, if I knew that if I didn't go to work that day, none of my clients in home care would get care. They would all be canceled. Or one of my colleagues who was already overworked and overscheduled would end up having to do extra.
By the time Price's daughter had finished work, her mother had taken a turn for the worse. She died a few hours later. Price's daughter issued a statement Thursday taking current and former governments to task for the state of the healthcare system. Clowns, racists, misogynists, criminals, snivellers, and tofu eaters. That's a partial list of the insults hurled between the NDP and progressive conservatives during question period at the Manitoba legislature on Thursday. PC leader Abhi Khan even brought up old criminal charges against Premier Wab Kinew. Khan says he's no longer playing nice with the Premier.
The Premier is not answering any questions. We have to change our strategy, and our strategy today was to do as the NDP are doing.
NDP Cabinet Minister Tracy Schmidt, who meanwhile blamed the poor decorum on the PCs.
Question period is opposition time. It's up to the opposition to set the tone, and I think we saw the tone that they wanted to set today.
Question period was so unruly, Speaker Tom Lindsay had to apologize at one point. Canada isn't in a recession. Statistics Canada says the economy bounced back sharply in the third quarter with annualized growth of 2.6%. That's as rebounds in exports lined up with a sharp drop in imports. Real gross domestic product figures for the quarter topped expectations for 0.05% annualized growth from the Bank of Canada and other economists. After 2 days, fire crews have ended their battle against a blaze in a Hong Kong apartment complex. Officials now say at least 128 people are dead. About 200 remain unaccounted for. Family and friends of residents have begun arriving to look for their loved ones. Mira Wong is trying to find her father.
Just recognize some picture is in my bodies of my dad, because my body is still missing here. And then when I come out again, it's not the first time became inside to identify many bodies. Some angles here, maybe ridiculous.
Officials say rescue efforts are now over. A violent attack at St. Ange Collegiate sent a student to hospital this week. St. Anne police say another student has been arrested. The incident was caught on a school video and shared, prompting a warning from the principal. CBC's Christopher Garreau reports.
CBC has seen one of the videos shared online by students. The victim was confronted by a group of other teens in front of the school. He sat on a planter, not engaging. That's when one of the group can be seen grabbing him, throwing him to the ground. The victim was kicked in the ribs and punched before having his head repeatedly stomped on as he tried to cover the back of his head with his hands. The victim has since been released from hospital with minor injuries. The principal sent a letter to parents saying he made clear to everyone at the school that standing by and filming before getting help was not okay. He added, students need to look out for each other. Christopher Garreau, CBC News, Steinbach.
And it looks like the bill for the October jewel heist at the Louvre will be picked up by tourists. Less than 2 months after the $100 million worth of jewels were stolen from the museum, the price of a ticket was going up by €10. It will now cost non-Europeans €32 to get in. The price hike will go towards paying for security renovations at the museum. Those renovations, which include giving the Mona Lisa her own room, are expected to cost more than $900 million US. And that's the CBC News from Winnipeg. You can always find more on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Megan.
You're welcome.
That's Megan Ketchison at our CBC News Desk. Thanks to everyone who put together the show this week. Abby Adeyemi, Sierra Sanders, Chidi Akuma, May McKillop, Carmen Ponto, Marshall Hodgins, Jenna Bedosso, Dylan Longhurst, Chloe Friesen, Sofia Peralta Baron, and Tony de Guzman, as well as our CA reporters, Shanali Vidal, Jim Agapito, and our host, Nadia Kidwai, Marjorie Dowhouse, Faith Fundal, and Marcy Marcusa, who is here actually hosting today, or emceeing today, if you're wondering where she is, at the Ukrainian Labor Temple. Also, big thanks to Darren Morash, our YouTube producer, Nelly Gonzalez, our show producer, and Leif Larson, our senior producer of audio. Abby, quick look at the weather.
Yeah, it's a cold and snowy late November morning across the province. Light snow in the southern part of the province. We're seeing wind chills in the valleys of -22 around Brandon, and up north we're seeing wind chills around -25 near Churchill. Winnipeg right now, we are stuck at -7 all day. We warm to -5 later. This fluffy stuff will be sticking with us for the rest of the day.
Thank you very much, Abby. And thank you, everyone here at the Ukrainian Labor Temple. It is getting very busy right here. Lots of people sitting down to enjoy some pancakes and support employment here in Winnipeg for folks who might not have an opportunity to do otherwise. I'm Corey Funk. I hope you all have a good weekend. The Current is next.